It seems the main character begins to get acquainted with the magical land. The end uses the bricks he created. Moreover, the tavern is connected to his mana, so he can use his memory preservation magic on it. So it needs to be turned on. The experiment to reproduce the end succeeded. The main character notices that he cannot move, and remembers absolutely nothing. He cries. When a woman comes, he is not sure if he was involved in the accident. She asks if he is hungry, and the boy wonders if she is a nurse. This means he is in a hospital. A little girl uses the power of light. The baby is terrified because of this. It seems he has reincarnated in another world. This is not the world he knows. Therefore, there is no choice except the world where there is magic. The woman offers to breastfeed the boy. The baby feels that his body does not obey. It seems there is magic there, and that beautiful woman is his mother. Reincarnating in a new world is the best. Now he has started a new life as an infant and still has no name. He is only called the son of Maria and something else. Apparently, when he turns 6 years old, a naming ceremony will be held. Everyone calls him the third son, and this causes an unpleasant feeling in the main character. The most surprising thing in this world for him is still magic, and as far as he knows, there is nothing for lighting in that room. Maybe it is because people there usually use magic for lighting. This means that magic is part of everyday life. This means that he will also be able to use magic. Fire, wind, water, ice, the very thought of it captivates the boy. He tries to reach out his hand to use the magic of lighting, but nothing happens. The main character fidgets in bed until he becomes frustrated and starts to cry. His mother Mary picks him up and asks what is happening. He decides that he needs to change his approach. First, he needs to observe how his family uses magic and learn to do the same. The boy's mother notices that he has woken up. Then she raises her index finger. She closes her eyes and something glows until she calls the light. It seems they somehow channel energy from their bodies. Mary finds it funny that the main character keeps grumbling. The vocal cords needed for spellcasting are not yet sufficiently developed, so first he needs to find his source of mana and begin training. Since then, he has been training his mana every day for the past 3 years. Now he still cannot use magic when he is hungry. Moreover, they are poor peasants, so hunger is constant. He is only 3 years old, and poverty is already affecting his health. Since then, he will have to look for food. There are 2 types of mana. The first is inside his body, and the second is around people. External mana can be absorbed through the mouth. Having learned this, he began to gather all the mana in his stomach and learn to control it and spread it throughout his body. Thanks to this, he can now improve it. However, he must be at least 6 years old to undergo the naming ceremony, and only then will he be able to use magic. This means he will only be able to use everyday magic, like lighting or creating water. His parents can only use this type of magic and nothing more. Since he was a baby, he has been trying to use magic every day. Now he has finally received positive feedback. The boy takes a deep breath. He gathers mana in his stomach and purifies it. Then he applies it to his chest and lets it flow through his limbs. When the man reaches the edge of his body, he must stretch out his hand to it and slowly turn it back. Spread the mana all over his body. In the air, mana resembles a gas, while the one formed in their bodies is much more like a liquid. Mana overflows his palms and pours onto the ground. The main character thinks he needs to act slowly and not lose focus, because last time he stopped at this point. The man he worked so hard on was dispersed. When training mana, the image is very important. The soil is soft and loose, moist to the touch and rich in nutrients. Once his grandmother from the village used something to fertilize the soil. Weeding and proper soil cultivation provide the field with good drainage and access to sunlight. The boy's heart begins to beat faster. He feels the soil. Then he starts to sweat. Suddenly the entire land before him is perfect. The boy is amazed because he succeeded. Then he takes a handful of soil in his hands. Plots of approximately 10 square meters. The terrain can vary. They are farmers, but the soil on their land is dense and overgrown with weeds, and this is the worst case. Agricultural machinery here is rare and incomparable to what was in his previous world. But he did it, simple magic. But this was the first time since he was born that he managed to use it. For him, this is the first step into a new world. Suddenly, the boy's stomach rumbled. Apparently, magic causes hunger, so the boy decided to plant a root that could be eaten in 20 days. This is ordinary feed for poor farmers, vegetables that look bad and taste terrible. Still, the boy pays no attention to the bad reputation of those roots, because he needs to eat something. The little boy works hard, carries water, and digs the soil. Finally, he manages to grow everything needed. However, for a 3-year-old child, this is still too much work. 5 days have passed since he managed to use his magic. Every day he applies his magic to the soil, and now part of the plot has turned into soft ground. Even flowers are sprouting. Flowers are a sign of good soil, but only 5 days have passed, and usually it takes 20 days. Obviously, this is too fast and abnormal, but the boy can do nothing about it. Then the little boy pulls out the plant. The root is very large and comes out whole. This is a huge amount of food. Under normal circumstances, he would have gotten into some trouble. The boy takes one of the roots, then washes it in a bucket of water. He brings the food to his mouth and takes a bite. Then he chews with difficulty. The taste of this is very bad, but this is the beginning of his life as a farmer. After he improved the soil, he engaged in choosing the crop, and the vegetables in his plot grow very quickly. Usually it takes 20 days, but these roots were ready in just 5 days, and that is a bit frightening. Of course, nothing there compares to what he ate before, but it is either this or starve. The food from his past life was fresh, tasty, and beautiful. Farmers and researchers carefully selected everything, which took time, so he needs to be patient. In any case, there is something there that actively challenges common sense, and that is magic. He did not fully understand the whole theory, but the vegetables in his garden grew very quickly, so he will start selling them. The boy hopes that someday he will like the taste of that food. He does not know how to achieve this. But now, having stopped to think, he remembered a story from a lesson about green peas. They observed green peas with their own eyes and over time, in several harvests, discovered the principle of heredity. Thinking about what to do, the little boy falls asleep. The first step is to check the characteristics of twainus. Differences are not only in the roots but also in the leaves and flowers. Some are black, others purple. Some have smaller numbers, others have larger ones. The flowers of one are white and the others are yellow. After classifying the characteristics, he was able to divide them into 6 planting plots. Since he started this method, it became his hobby and habit. Then the boy noticed that those vegetables were magical too. The only magic he created mixes the internal and external, and every time he uses it, it also consumes fused mana. Even if he tries to connect the magic again, there is no internal mana in his body, so he will not be able to use magic. The boy does not know how to restore mana when this happens. When he eats, the recovery is slow. He learned this after he was able to eat that ordinary food. He concluded that ordinary food and vegetables would help him recover faster. After eating, the manatee needs time to fully recover, so he has not noticed this yet, and there is an important question. He wants to know which food restores the most mana. The difference in the volume of recovery is visible in different twains. The taste has hardly changed, but he will put it off for now. The boy gladly discovers so much new in a few days. He knows exactly what to compare and prioritize among the food that restores the most mana. But ultimately his body has limits. The boy would like to find a faster way. For now, he just loosens the soil. The boy places his hands on the ground. At first, it is impossible to concentrate without closing his eyes. But now he is already used to it. And when the energy dissipates, it settles on top of his plantation. He does not understand what it is. It is some kind of flickering gas. The boy sees unclearly. So he concentrates purified mana in his limbs. Something strange is happening. The entire plantation reacts. And the little boy is amazed. Blue gas rises from the ground. He takes one of the roots and notices that this particular plant emits blue gas. It seeps from the root and enters the air. This impresses the boy. He begins to review other routes and compare them. The boy concluded that the one that restores the most mana is the darker blue. In other words, the blue color must be the mana itself. After that, he continued to observe and eat, focusing the mana in his eyes. The boy discovered that the bigger the root, the more mana it contains. The taste remained terrible. But the boy kept working with genetics day after day. At 5 years old, he learned many new things. The boy discovered a species that restores a lot of mana. However, it does not act immediately. This information and that magical blue color kept him in euphoria for some time. A little boy wonders what will happen if he concentrates mana in another part of his body. Not just his eyes. The boy needs to check this, but right now it's better for him to just sleep. Until then, he only passed mana through his body and released it into the ground instead of using magic. So instead of lightening his body, he keeps it inside himself. When a large amount of mana is concentrated, a legendary strengthening of the body occurs, and thanks to this, it is much easier for him to water plants and expand his land. The boy thinks that if muscles can become stronger, then internal organs can too. Maybe if he improves digestion, it will be easier for him to eat and absorb mana from vegetables faster. The boy thought for a long time about how to use his magic to deal with this situation, until one fine day, someone says they will go. Mary asks him to be careful. She looks sad, and tells the boy to return home safely. The man smiles at her and tells the main character that he will leave everything under his care. His father, who was the family's support, had to leave. The boy did not understand why the farmer had to leave home. The reason is that he was drafted into the war. A great conflict broke out, and most of the men from the village had to leave. All the boys went to that war. He always felt that in that world technology had serious flaws, and it turned out that the problem was the war. In calmer times, the peasants worked the land together. The system was fair, and whoever worked more had more land. If there were no wars, there would be more fields, and technology would flourish. The young man Fields is depressed. Mary tells the boy to calm down because his father has gone to war more than once. It can be considered that the responsibility for creating fields is important, and he must take it upon himself. The stakes are proportional to how much land you cultivate. The boy is worried that the equipment of those who went to war is poor. Some have agricultural tools that are not suitable for combat. In other words, these men are used as ordinary soldiers. They get wounded. And because of this, the surrounding areas become restless. Sometimes people lose their homes. But the boy does not want to be involved in someone's death. Still, some potential of that war will be needed. Weapons and armor will be in high demand. The most important thing is money. A woman comes to exchange some roots for potatoes. The boy notices that the problem in that world lies in barter. In that village, money does not circulate. So only one thing remains: to act. He will have to rely on a trader. Mary advises the boy to make sandals. From the roots he grows, many things can be made, such as sandals, boots, and various footwear. Thus, the boy will be able to buy everything he wants. The main character notes that this seems very inefficient. A trader is a person who travels between cities and towns to sell their goods, and at the same time can negotiate the price. So this must be a fail-safe way to make money. A man in the city notices sandals and considers them very beautiful. The main character says that his mother taught him how to make them. Smiling, the young man decides to buy a pair of sandals. For a moment, the boy was very happy because he was going to receive money. But soon reality made itself known. He received only 6 old copper coins. It seems the sandal is much cheaper than he expected. At this pace, he will need a whole lifetime to buy a weapon. He calls the merchant, and the main character asks for permission to ask him something. After the merchant told him about market prices, several days passed. Now he will try something similar. The young man is tired because he worked a lot. Considering the information he received, this will become a useful resource for making a profit. He plans to start an experiment with growing psychedelic mushrooms. The main character was shocked when he learned that there are ways to restore manners. That time the merchant showed him a magical mushroom. Apparently this mushroom rarely grows, and there are few of them. The trader says that the thing is very rare. The host watches and is left speechless. So the question is it just some kind of shiitake mushroom? But the merchant boasts that he has it. Contrary to what he imagined, the taste turned out to be somewhat simple, and with a growing kit, he can grow shiitake. Mushrooms grow from mycelium on trees, which provide them with their main nutrition. If magical mushrooms grow the same way as shiitake, then the possibilities are endless. The trunks were dried, which saved time. Now a certain balance of dryness and moisture is needed. After that, he will plant the mushrooms and wait for them to grow. But if it were that simple, someone would have already tried to do the same. If they are called magical mushrooms, then they must have some mana. But if it steals nutrients from the tree trunk, then its mana must also come from there. If that's the case, he can simply give his monitor those wooden chests. The boy is eager to try. The first step, give different decks different amounts of mana. During the day, he will tend the field. In the evening, organize the decks, and at night make sandals with his mother. So after some time, mushrooms appear. There are only 3 of them, but apparently his training worked. For this to work, he needs to cultivate on a large scale. But there is no more space in his house for that pile of firewood. The sandal plantations and tunics take up a lot of space. Instead of more storage space, he needs a separate building for this. When he uses magic to make the soil fertile, he can also create ridges. If you follow this logic, you can change the shape of the soil and build something new. This is the challenge of magical architecture, but he does not challenge himself without a plan. There is a lot of soil that can be used as a building material. Creating something out of nothing is the rule of magic and very difficult. For example, earth magic exists only in video games. Purified mana in the body gathers in his palm and turns into small stones for throwing. The damage from that stone depends on the speed of its movement. Imagining the whole process, it can be determined. If it is possible, it is still extremely inefficient. Consumption becomes more efficient if you use what already exists. The little boy becomes thoughtful. For some reason, he can only use magic properly when working with the earth. It would not be a problem if he could simply turn soil into metal. A good task would be to build a warehouse from the ground up. The guy starts to drool. He is determined. Then the incantation takes place while he keeps his hands on the ground. Everything gets confused. The boy falls and then loses consciousness. The boy wakes up a little later. In front of him is his mother. She is very worried. The little boy has a headache. He lay in bed for 2 days. The boy fainted because he spent all the mana in his body, and because of this, there was an acute shortage of mana. At first, all the mana in his body circulates to make it easier to use magic. This includes using mana to enhance the physical capabilities of the body. Now he is grateful that he did not lose all the mana and did not die. Although he failed the mission, it became a lesson for him. Where the boy applied his power, a large crater formed. Usually his mana should not be depleted so quickly, so there must be a reason for the sudden expenditure of all his mana. There may be a connection between area and volume. While a square with a side of 10 meters has an area of 100, a cube with a side of 10 meters has a volume of 1000. Simply put, he probably spent 10 times more mana than necessary, and for a moment he will have to give up lifting the building. Instead, he will try to make materials for his building. From the soil, the boy makes a brick. The magic of architecture is at the level of his dreams, and the brick making succeeded. Later, the boy manages to arrange them into a square, although it turned out crooked, but it is his first time. Essentially, this belongs to earth magic, but its applications are increasing. Something attracts the boy's attention. For him, it is a terrible thing that destroys lands. The soil that his ancestors cultivated for generations will soon become unsuitable for farming. Secretly, he has always been proud of how special his village looks, using spells to heal the land and turn stones into fertilizer to enrich the soil. Magic to cultivate fields, magic to strengthen the body or its parts, and now magic for making bricks. He still considers farming magic boring. Currently, only he can use it, but giving it a name makes no sense, especially since magical words are not needed to use magic. But every time he improves the soil, he pronounces the name of the spell because it makes him happier. All this is because he needs so much time to learn how to use and create spells. The main character says the magical words. The land completely transforms, and he remains impressed. The magic worked the moment he spoke. Although now he is used to it, earlier he had to imagine what he wanted for it to become reality. It seems he finally created his own magic, the ability to create spells. It becomes more effective than he initially thought. Quiet magic is good at first, but later it becomes boring. The boy is glad that he can use magic just by saying words, so he uses it again to improve the soil. Now he has a field 10 meters long. If you use magic by word, its effects will be permanent. Without changing this, he can simply activate magic in his head and change the amount of soil that will be processed. Of course, mana consumption depends on the size of the plot. The boy still does not understand how this is possible. For example, he begins experimenting with a spell that creates bricks. He talks all day about making bricks, and says the same when he goes to sleep. Many months have passed, and the boy still insists on this, until he finally manages to complete the brick creation spell, which makes objects of equal mass. This is completely conditional. In this case, the condition is the very casting of the spell, and so he mastered a new way to create spells. For some time now, other people in the village have been behaving strangely. It seems he exaggerated a bit when he went to experiment with bricks, and his mother notices that such an amount of bricks is a problem. The woman says that if these were plates, they would at least be useful for something, and this gives the main character an idea. If bricks can be made from this earth, it means that kitchenware can be made from the same materials, so the boy makes a pot for rice. The main character was very happy, and began making many things for the home, and giving them to his mother. Until she says they have enough, so the boy stops making those things. Still, the boy wants to make his mother happy. Before he made brown and dull things. The next step is to focus on quality instead of quantity. Mary is very happy when she receives a new item, namely a white porcelain cup. It seems that magic does not necessarily require using exact materials. The little boy decides to make something that looks more expensive so that his mother is even happier. The new item is a mug with flowers painted as if by a child, but his mother loved it. Although he has no artistic talent, he still made the cup. The boy does not know how to make porcelain cutlery, but he once heard that some things can be made from sea sand. He imagines something cylindrical, long, and transparent. A new object has been created, a glass cup. By doing so, he creates something new, which probably has never been seen either in the village or beyond its borders. Now the boy sells sandals and magic mushrooms. He received 14 bronze coins, and is still upset. Although the amount increased, they are still only bronze coins. Suddenly the merchant says he wants to talk to the boy. He understands that this is a good opportunity because he wanted to sell his products, so he asks what exactly the buyer needs. The man says he wants to buy some bricks that the boy made. The merchant asked if he had recently built something, and the boy blushed and replied that it was just a warehouse. However, the man is shocked that it was made of bricks. Now he wants the boy to talk to his parents about selling those bricks, but first the main character confirms that he will sell them. Then he excitedly says that he made some kitchen utensils, but the man seems confused. Then the merchant turns around and says that he is only interested in bricks, and he will look at the pots and plates another time. The child grabs him maniacally and says that the man will not regret it. Under pressure, he agrees to take a look. Having seen everything the boy made, he is impressed and asks how the boy managed it. The trader agrees to buy it along with the bricks. The boy is happy and believes he will earn not just a few bronze coins. Yet nothing has changed, and he received 5 bronze coins. The main character grabs the man again and says that he probably thinks of him as just a little foolish child who does not know the prices of things. The merchant says he is paying much more for it than usual, and the boy asks why it is so cheap. These things are very beautiful and will probably find buyers at a good price, but the merchant says he usually sells them to ordinary people. Even if these are nice things, people do not have enough money to buy them. Rich people do business only with merchants they have known for a long time. He does not even have a chance. Advertising expensive goods to those who can truly afford them is the key to business. But in that world, there is neither internet nor newspapers for advertising goods. In any case, he had no connections to advertise it, and the conversation with that merchant was a waste of time. The man tells the boy not to be upset about it. The brick market is very good right now. Therefore, he plans to buy all the bricks the boy can make by next time. The next few days, the main character builds pile after pile of bricks. The merchant returned impressed. It seems the boy really kept his promise and made even more bricks. If it were another child, he would not have believed his words, but they have known each other for some time. This time the merchant brought a creature that could carry that pile of bricks. The child is amazed. It looks like a dragon. The monster looks at him. The merchant asks if the boy has never seen a horse dragon before. The main character is impressed. But later the merchant explains that it is not the same as a dragon. That creature is a workaholic. Service beasts are creatures that serve their master from the egg, and these eggs grow by absorbing the mana of the one who protects them. One more point. The creature will resemble the mana given for cultivation, meaning everything depends on how you hatch this egg. So, when the egg hatches, this service creature will be completely devoted to you. The MC finishes loading a huge cart full of bricks for the man. In that world, there are very strong dragons, but the most popular is the horse dragon. The horse is a very resilient animal, and birds are also quite popular because they can fly. The host asks if these working animals are expensive, and the man replies that yes, horses you can ride cost even more. Although there is demand for bricks now, that won't always be the case, and the guy doesn't even know how to take care of the egg. If he's lucky, he can make good money from this. Then he calls the merchant. The main character says he also wants to try hatching a beast egg. Then the boy asks the merchant to bring him an egg next time he appears. That thing cost just about all the money he had saved up until then. Suddenly several men returned. The children were happy to find their parents again. Sheila returns and takes her fourth daughter in her arms. Mary is very happy to return to her husband. Then the woman asks her son if the merchant brought him something good and if the boy can lend her some money. But the main character says that he has no money. The woman does not understand what he wants to say. When the boy was only 3 years old, he decided to grow sprites. Then his mother thought that it was too hard a job for a child. Despite this, he was determined. She told her son to just make sure the crop grows well. When they went to check, the little boy had already created several gardens. Mary at that moment realized that her son was incredible. Time passed, and when he turned 5 years old, the boy decided to start saving money. The woman thought it was still too early, but MC said he wanted to save money for the future. Although he was still a child, all this time he managed the merchant by himself, except for the magical mushrooms he was growing. Sometimes the boy worried her because he tried too hard. Her son built a warehouse from his bricks. He also gave a beautiful porcelain cup as a gift. But she never understood how he could do all this. Mary asked why the boy did this. She cannot believe that he spent all the money from work on an egg of some creature. The main character says that when the egg hatches, they will be able to make a lot of money. But the woman replies that if it were that simple, others would have already gotten rich. The woman also says that those eggs are like a lottery game, and many of them don't even hatch. The boy's mother says that she allowed him to work only to save money. In response, the main character says that since he earned this money by his own labor, he can spend it on anything he wants. Mary says that this is not quite true because he even sold the sandals they made together. Since then, the boy is forbidden to buy anything without her permission. The boy tries to apologize, but the woman wants him to think about his decisions. His mother is beautiful and young, but when she is angry, she becomes frightening. Now the boy has no other choice. He is the one who makes bricks and sells them to the merchant, so he slightly bypasses the system to save money and keep the secret. At that moment, everything is focused on that egg. The boy made a small pouch for that egg using sprites and can now carry it safely. Several people can help to bring out one egg, but their mana is different, so it is increasingly difficult to get the same type of creature each time. The main character fills his eyes with mana. The egg is surrounded by a blue light. The boy notices that it has very little mana, but it is still surrounded by that color. Then the boy adds mana to that egg with a single breath of power. The shade of blue becomes more saturated, and the little boy rejoices because it means he has absorbed mana. He is not sure how much mana needs to be spent on this. Despite this, he wants the egg to make the best use of it. Every day he looked at the egg and added monotony to it. The little boy thinks that maybe he should build a hiding place. As his mother says, he is just a child and should not spend money on himself. In that area, customs are very outdated. Decisions are made by the head of the family through patriarchy. The protagonist started saving money to finally buy proper weapons because it will help him make a name for himself during the war. Younger children are forced to dedicate their lives to the elders if they do not leave this family. Now, instead of making weapons, the boy has to start preparing for independent life. As they say, strike while the iron is hot. The village where he was born is surrounded, and outside there is a very dense forest. Earlier, when the lands were sufficiently safe, they cut down trees and cultivated the land to build a village. Then, due to wars, the city continues to do everything possible to endure, but it becomes smaller. The lands outside the village have no owner except the one who cultivates them. The boy decides that now he only needs to find a place to build his home. He uses magic to strengthen his body. Because of this, he can overcome fatigue no matter how much he works. The boy also controls the soil with his power. He pushes the trees upward to be able to fell them. Then he fells all the trees. Now all those trees need to be removed from the place where he wants to build. Using the power to level the ground, he managed to get rid of the trees. After several repetitions of magic, the airplane was built. The boy almost cleared a large glade in the forest, and now he has to build brick by brick. He dreams of magic that would allow him to erect a house at once. Then an idea occurs to him, and he concludes that he does not necessarily have to build a house. According to his hypothesis, when he tries to erect a building at once, due to the large volume of work, he spends more mana than he has, so the solution is simple. He just needs to make each wall separately. He uses all the bricks, stacks them, and builds a strong wall. For this, the boy uses the image of one wall. Then the boy manages to build a square out of bricks, but the roof and doors will have to be made manually. He could finish building his house in the forest very quickly. Meanwhile, he continued to watch his egg. It seems to have grown quite a bit, and the blue color is much brighter, so it should hatch soon. His mother passes by the door and asks the boy to hurry. The main character finally turns 6 years old. When you turn 6 years old, you are baptized in the village, and it was a day for the young boy. There are no more than 10 people in the church, but it is still a small village. The MC does not remember his baptism from his past life, so it probably was not very pleasant, but the naming ritual takes place during the baptism. Thanks to this, the boy will finally be able to use magic in everyday life. Humanity has always feared monsters and hid from them. Despite this, many people have learned to use magic, and the number of human territories that manage to survive has increased. People who cannot protect themselves receive a divine ability to thrive. Now they will begin the naming ceremony. Citizens receive magic daily through the baptism ritual. The church can recruit followers, and the feudal lord receives their names. It is a system from which everyone benefits. The priest says that if the boy is named this way, he will receive divine protection and be able to use magic. However, magic can only be used to improve people's lives. The priest asks if the little boy promises not to abuse magic unnecessarily, and he answers yes. Then he opens a heavy book. The main character notices that it has incredible decoration. After the priest reads something in the book, he puts it on the table and closes it. Then he calls the boy the son of Ashira and Maria. The man announces that this church will baptize him. From then on, he will be ours and must live honestly for the sake of his lord and friends. The Lord in his divine protection will watch over him. R uses his power to improve his vision. Then he notices that the magic is concentrated in the man's palm. Suddenly, he pushes the magic circle towards him. We are surprised. The boy all this time thought about what would happen when magic concentrates in the brain, and it seems memory is preserved. Pushing aside the magic circle, new information is directly input into his mind. Now he can use everyday magic. The boy checks the light and soon it lights up. R notices that there is no difference between the spells performed by children and adults, so the magic is completely frozen. Even if you improve this ability for years, it will not move from its place. So the little boy's plans to avoid everything failed. R's hoped that after gaining powers, he would be able to use some magic other than earthly. But now it is worth forgetting about it for a while. His attention was drawn to another thing. This is the pre-magic circle. R wants to learn more about this. Several days pass, and the little boy still cannot understand anything about it. He does not understand letters. In fact, he barely understands the letters of modern people, and about the letters of ancestors, not to mention. He wanted at least to be able to write his name. Suddenly the egg begins to crack. The boy eagerly waits to see what creature will come out of it. The egg continues to make sounds, as if whatever is inside wants to come out. It will still take a lot of time. R wonders if he can help a little. And at that moment the egg cracks, and a creature appears from it. It looks like a horse mixed with a pen. That cute little horse looks at ours. The little animal tries to stand up, and the boy wonders if it already knows how to do that. Despite its shaky little legs, R was very happy. He claps his hands for his new little pet, then strokes it. The boy is grateful deep down that he got that little animal. R notices that it is a horse, half reindeer. When it grows up, it will be strong and big enough to carry things. Suddenly, the little creature starts eating the shell of its egg. The boy does not understand why it is doing that. R doesn't know what that little monster eats. Labor animals feed thanks to magic, but this monster behaves differently. Giving meat every day would be very difficult for him. He even heard stories about people who could not keep their pets because they had no money for food. Moreover, if it needs milk, he has no milk to give. The little monster starts eating something else. The little animal eats radish, which grows very easily there, and apparently it liked it. So far it seems to be herbivorous, so he will be able to afford to feed this little monster. The little horse starts looking at him, then rubs against his leg and climbs onto his lap. There it lies down and sleeps. R does not understand what is happening, but it is very cute. The horse is already very big. Before that, he did not give the horse a name to avoid emotional attachment, but now he wants to do it. He wants a special name. The boy feels that daily magic is programmed and inscribed in the magic circle. He will try to do the naming work as well as possible, using the magic circle. Since this creature has magic, it will probably manage and be able to find water on its own. If it does not have enough water or drinks polluted water, it may die. R thinks about what to name it. He is not confident in his naming ability. If he remembers correctly, a creature with 2 horns would be called a bicorn, but now he cannot connect these names. Then the boy remembers the name Valkyrie, which belonged to the god of war from Legends. The boy asks what his friend thinks about the name. Valkyrie interacts cheerfully. It seems she can understand human language. She is quite intelligent, but now he will begin the naming ceremony. Recently, we managed to naturally enhance magic through breathing. This time he will do it carefully and delicately, and fill his entire body with dense magic. R stretches out his hand forward and uses his power. It is hard for him to hold all the magic there. Then he targets Valkyrie. His goal is to reproduce all the details of the magic circle he remembered. The little boy feels his veins about to burst, and he begins to sweat from exhaustion. After some time, a magic circle appears before him. Approaching the limit of his abilities, he managed to do it. Then R says that her name should be Valkyrie. The circle disperses. Tired, our guy falls to the ground. It was much harder than he imagined. He could have died if he hadn't succeeded. Then he calls Valkyrie so they can try to use magic together. They leave the small house so she can use magic without setting everything on fire. Then Valkyrie creates a glowing orb. The little boy is very happy that she can cast spells. After trying several spells, the boy realizes that Valkyrie uses various household magic, such as lighting a fire or creating drinking water. Suddenly a brick starts to float. Ars is puzzled. Valkyrie is calm, as if she is controlling those bricks. The boy wonders what is happening. Valkyrie uses magic in which only R is new. Perhaps the memory preservation came to her through the magic circle. This would mean that other children who were given names could also use that magic. Our boy is outraged that other people can use what only he is supposed to know. Then he calls Valkyrie and shows her what he can do. R extends a small pot to her and asks if she can make the same one. But as he thought, Valkyrie will be able to use the same spells as he does only after she is named. For example, our character can control the size of the land plot he levels whenever he wants. However, Valkyrie can only level squares of a certain size. The naming ritual is much more systematic than protection, and this explains why it cannot configure its basic magic. R hesitates whether it is safe to sell it to someone who knows how to use its magic. Now he needs to confirm this with someone. The merchant is shocked that the working beast Arsa uses magic and says he has never heard of such a thing. One of the things the main character learned about that world is the value of information. If a merchant who trades everywhere has never heard of it, then he is probably right. So animals that use magic are rare. The merchant asked if the boy's egg had hatched, and he said yes. It became a horse that can carry things. The merchant is very excited and asks to see the animal. Ars says he will bring Valkyrie to him. She is learning not to use magic in front of people. The seller is impressed and says she is truly wonderful. Of course, it's good when someone helps carry things, but she is also good looking. Even her color is very beautiful. Ars says that in any case, he is not interested in selling her, and the merchant asks why. After all, he spent all his money to buy that egg hoping to earn more. However, we admit that he probably got attached to the animal. Honestly, he keeps her close because of interest in her magical power. But the truth is that he wants to stay close to her. When she is nearby and much stronger than him, it can protect him. The merchant asks if the boy wants to make a deal. He has 5 creature eggs, and he can give them all to us. However, not everything is so simple. After all, he is a merchant. He says he will give us the eggs until they hatch. Then he will return to buy the monsters that were born. If these beasts hatch with us, finding a buyer will not be difficult. R says he agrees, but he needs to explain the terms. The terms describe the cost of the beasts, the rules of sale, and other details, and thanks to them, Ars feels much more confident about making that deal. If he manages to collect enough monster eggs, he will no longer have financial problems on the farm. Since then, he decided to work diligently. Ars realized that he needs to properly infuse his magic into those eggs. Valkyrie begins to sniff them, and Ars says she cannot eat them, but the creature quickly puts one of them into her mouth. The boy panics because he thinks one of the eggs has broken. Until Valkyrie lies down next to them, our people notice that they are all intact. It seems she wants to hatch these eggs. The creature wants to take care of them as if they were its own. Touching the eggs with its snout, it transfers its energy to them, and Ars is shocked that the Valkyrie can infuse mana. It turned out that she knew from birth that the eggs need to absorb mana to hatch. Then he concludes that she cannot incubate those eggs because the creatures born from them depend on the energy of the one who incubated them, and it would make no sense for him to leave those eggs. Then one of Ars notices that she hid her magic in 3 eggs. You can share the care of an egg with others, but this complicates the reproduction of such an amount of magical power. Ar agrees to leave 3 eggs for the Valkyrie, and asks her to be careful and make sure they hatch well. The boy is proud. In his past life, he found a dog in the middle of the street. Then his mother doubted whether he could really take care of that little creature, and said that he could not take on this responsibility. He was able to keep the dog after he said he would take responsibility for it. He then thought that he was taking care of the baby, feeding and walking him, but one must consider the expenses for food, vaccinations, medicine, and consultations. When he reflects on his parents' words from that day, he realizes they were right. Now, when he has to take care of several younger Valkyries, the situation has become a bit more complicated. 5 eggs hatched without problems. Those he hatched are a bit bigger, but all resemble a Valkyrie. One way or another, he has already overcome the first stage. But as expected, the more there are, the less food will remain. If he wants to continue this business, 1 plantation in his hideout is not enough. He needs to increase the number of gardens for cultivation in the forest. Worried, Arstels calls all these animals to go with him. He uses the same method as before, cutting down trees and leveling the ground. Then all that remains is to prepare and improve the soil, and everything will be ready for planting. Ar tries to control those little monsters, but they are very restless. The boy Zikr gave them a name, and they still know how to use magic. It seems that you don't get magic just through a name, or beasts live by different rules than humans. This means that all monsters born in this family will be able to use magic. Ar is interested in whether Valkyrie can ask others not to use magic. But now it is best to focus on expanding the planting area. Now the size is much more pleasant than before. One could even say that it is huge. Despite everything, it looks like deforestation. It is so big that it cannot be measured with one hand. But as a person who previously studied deforestation, he worries about the damage it causes to nature. As the villagers said, the forest is large enough to explore, and it needs to feed several creatures. The bigger the better. But the bigger it is, the harder it will be to manage everything. To overcome fatigue, it is better for them to start working together. Ar asks if Valkyrie is ready for the first trip. Although she is not a horse, a regular saddle will probably do. At least that's what he thought. His father says that in that village there is no one who can make a saddle for a monster. He doubts whether a cart will be enough, because usually that's how they deal with such monsters. However, he really wants to gallop on Valkyrie, because someday he plans to go to the battlefield, and cavalry is much stronger than regular soldiers. This is not a mistake, because being on top of Valkyrie will give him a great advantage, even if there is no saddle on which he could ride. The decision is to try to gallop like that. Of course, the skill of controlling a living creature, synchronizing its movements with his own, requires skills. Riding Valkyrie turned out to be much easier than he imagined. Valkyrie is very smart and walks at a pace comfortable for her. Thanks to this, he could ride her without a saddle. Even despite all this, everything went not as expected, and he began to feel severe muscle pain after a whole day of horseback riding, which he did not expect. No matter how careful the Valkyrie is, he will still sway, and to avoid falling, he will have to tense his legs. Mobilizing the muscles, he tenses them all, and this can be much harder than just wearing armor. However, for us, there is no other way, because he is not going to give up. After that, day by day, he continued to gallop to prepare. The boy says that Ars always gets excited when he goes to sleep and does not quiet down. Regarding McQuesson's questions about where he got this and whether he really does it, he studied new magic after intensive training. When he looks at people who use magic, he sees a blue aura in their eyes. Perhaps magic flows in the body like steam and is constantly wasted. He wants to know what will happen if he does not release this magic. A significant strengthening of natural healing powers was noticed. The boy has already noticed this effect but has not yet applied the cultivation spell because the effect is constant. With leveling, you can make an area completely flat, and with brick creation, you can simultaneously make several of the same size. The body strengthening spell makes your entire body stronger until the end of its duration. Even if he falls asleep after applying the enhancement spell, it still works normally. In general, the proposal to cultivate spells is to extend the recovery effect after fatigue. Thanks to this magic, he can wake up the next day full of strength, despite muscle fatigue, and we are very happy about this. He lies on the bed and smiles like a fool. After recovery, he can train at a gallop without hesitation. The merchant appears and says he brought another egg, but the boy hatched all those he had given him before. He thought 1 or 2 would hatch, but apparently, the deal with the monster is progressing very quickly. Even if you have several eggs, they usually do not hatch simultaneously. It takes more than a month for at least 1 to hatch. The merchant notices that he can put these creatures up for sale, but he does not know if he should do it because they might be bought with bad intentions. Actually, he does not want to sell the creatures at first, and Ars doubts whether the man plans to use the monsters in his business. The man smiles and says he does the same, but this time it is about something else. The little boy has to give one of his animals for free. R is outraged, and the man tries to explain. The merchant says that he will introduce him to the aristocrats who rule those lands. He previously said that for merchants who, like him, travel between villages, it is difficult to establish connections, and a certain credit is needed to find buyers for their goods, because the aristocratic market monopolizes trade and prevents new merchants from entering the market. R notes that the story about the merchant losing all the things he made was a lie. The merchant changes the subject and says that expensive things can only be sold to the rich. However, he does not have access to credit, and this complicates the situation. But if you give that creature to a rich person, the story will be completely different. In that world, a creature on which one can write is considered very valuable and useful, and during war such creatures become strategic material. Giving them one of the creatures will create a strong bond with the aristocracy. When you get into this circle, it will be easier to meet other aristocrats, which means advancement in the courier service in terms of social status, and the nobles ruling that region cannot be ignored. R doubts what he means. If they sell the combat creature to the enemies, the lives of all people will be in danger. The merchant says that then they should go to the aristocrat's residence, and the boy asks if he also needs to go. The man says that he will talk to his father, so he was able to leave the city for the first time. Ars was amazed by everything he saw. This is the city where the burghers live. With the help of all those creatures, they pulled the cart for 3 days. Then they arrived at Fontana, the city where the aristocrats live. Here is that fortified city, and this is our first adventure. The boy notices that everything around is very lively, and the merchant tells him to look around. People are building, so the demand for bricks is increasing. They are demolishing and rebuilding part of the wall to expand the city. But even if the bricks are reused, there are not enough. R asks the merchant if the demand will continue, and he says yes, but the city can make bricks on its own, so soon it will be able to meet the demand, and R will not be able to sell his bricks for long. In that case, the boy must make profitable deals with those nobles. An elegant man introduces himself as Raymond and says he is the negotiator of the House of Fontana. R is a merchant, and Kellen Neal is standing in front of the man. The main character is outraged because he thought he would see the nobility and be able to enter their houses. In any case, the nobles had no reason to meet with them personally. Raymond asks if that creature is a horse that one can ride. The seller says yes and adds that these are quality animals that can even be ridden in armor. They gladly hand over that working creature to Mr. Fontana. Raymond asks who that child is. The merchant introduces Ars as the one who animates those things, and the man next to him as his father. Raymond says that creating a working monster-like creature seems to take a lot of time, and the merchant agrees, saying that this species is called Valkyrie. Moreover, he would be grateful for permission to produce and sell this species. Meanwhile, Ars notes that Valkyrie is the name of the first, not the entire species. The real Valkyrie takes care of the village, and he definitely will not sell her. Raymond says he will sign their permit later. Additionally, he will inform Mr. Fontana about this. Then he asks them to continue working. The merchant agrees, and our man is not sure if the negotiations are over. Raymond coughs quietly and says that those creatures will not be useful in war anyway. The merchant asks why, and Raymond notices that the horns are inconvenient and interfere with wielding a sword or other weapons. Then he calls one of the workers. Next, he tells them to cut off the horn. Ars is shocked by this decision. He tries to get up, but his father restrains him. The main character does not understand how Raymond can harm the creatures he just received. The boy grits his teeth in anger. At that moment, he can do nothing. Later they went to the tavern. The little boy's father tries to say that he acted correctly, but the boy only thinks about his creatures being harmed, and Aquila says that first of all the boy must go wash his hands. He can hardly believe that the horns of this creature were cut off. They did not make noise. People say that the first step in training a guide dog is to teach it not to bark. I cannot rewrite this text because it justifies cruel treatment of animals. The dog is man's best friend and can go wherever it wants. We have creatures that he created behaving the same way. A little boy cries continuously. His father tells him to stay calm and ask questions, even if he is outraged. Ashella explains that he is more worried that those creatures will live shortly than about their horns. They will probably be blamed if the beast dies quickly. R wonders if these creatures will live less without horns, but he doesn't even know their lifespan. Ars tells his father that the man is completely calm, and Ashila replies that he is just occupying his social position as a peasant. His father is an uneducated farmer, but that doesn't mean he is stupid. There are things any woman knows, but he doesn't. The boy is a child who cleared the forest in a short time. It's no wonder if everyone sees something terrible in this. Still, his father desperately tried to convince people, even appealing to the ruler of those lands. Since they had many creatures, they had to plant a lot to feed them, but still, the grown amount was insufficient. Breeding such beasts and developing the forest was desired even by the nobles, so they were quickly granted permission to sell. Arsus's father speaks with him. Since they went to the city, they should take the opportunity to buy the necessary things. Our son is lucky because he was born to a father he can rely on. This makes him a very happy boy. They walk through the city center. The little boy says he hasn't seen any wooden houses and asks if they are unpopular. And Ashela says that wooden houses usually burn easily because of magical power. That is why houses in the city have so few windows, because magic provides light and windows are not needed. The boy notices that everything is connected to that magic, and Ashley says it is thanks to God's protection. These basic magics are granted after receiving a name from the magic circle. The boy doubts whether the energy really comes from there. Then Mac has an idea about windows. Since they are used to that complex style, replacing windows with glass ones would be a great idea. If he uses a few spells, he will soon be able to create several windows, and there will be enough demand for these constructions. The merchant notices that ours is very ambitious, and his father agrees, saying that he always surprises him. Even the village survives only thanks to that boy. In the past, people often died of hunger. There were years when people constantly died, and the land declined. It was a time of constant war. It got to the point where people fought each other to get food. At that time, he found some food. In that country, radishes were everywhere. But usually they were not tasty and hard to eat. But this time he felt a different taste. Although it tasted disgusting, it was edible, it was big and hard, and growth accelerated. At that moment he did not doubt that deaths would decrease if he had more radishes. He heard that this new variety of radish was brought from a village north of the forest, and when he arrived, he was shocked. Those days the whole village was dark, empty, and hungry. But there everything was completely different, and it was then that ours called the merchant. He offered those sandals. It was a little boy who had not even been baptized yet. R stood out among the farmers and asked him several questions about what he could do. After buying a lot of radishes and sandals, he passed by several farms and encouraged the farmers to grow this plant. The merchant thought he needed to leave soon. He was captivated by a little boy from a northern village. A few years later, the same boy tried to sell him something other than sandals. The man was impressed. These were mushrooms that grew in the forests, and about which he spoke only with Ars. Those mushrooms could be sold at a high price, and the village, which could offer nothing, still looked promising. However, children should not go into the forest. The man became worried and warned Ars not to go into the forest at such a young age. The little boy said he would be fine. The merchant met many children who also said so and then died. He suggested buying bricks from the boys to avoid risk. Then Ars came up with a new invention. They were cutlery, plates, cups, and mugs. The trader said it was incredible and asked how the boy did it, but the main character replied that it was a secret. After a rather thorough inspection, the merchant began to suspect that boy. The boy is probably of noble origin, but that is a secret. He believes that the boy inherited all that property and that he might be from a fallen family, but the man is completely mistaken. They met again. This time the boy was already baptized, and Ars surprised him again. The egg that the boy raised turned into a wonderful monster resembling a horse. The most amazing thing about Ars is his inspiration. Instead of getting stuck on bricks and mushrooms, he always looks for new things to sell. Ar thinks and tells the merchant that he wants weapons to go to war. The man feels that now he understands everything. Ars probably intends to restore the ruined family that is suffering in battle and is hiding in that village with a foreign family. In any case, our man is undoubtedly important. To establish a relationship with the boy, the merchant decided to hire him only for himself. Over time, he will probably restore everything and become a nobleman again. Ars calls the merchant in delirium. Then he asked what happened because they were going to buy things on the streets. The man told them to go. He is always ready to help the boy, and his life began to revolve around us. When they return from the trip, Allgrim shouts for the R's. It's about her mother, who is very happy to see her. She greets her with a warm hug. After a few days in the city, during which they buy everything needed, they return to the village. There they even manage to get a large saw to clear fallen trees, as well as a cart for transportation and a drink that her father wanted. The money he earned from that first sale seems to be running out, and it was only once. Since then, money from the sale of creatures will start coming in more easily. The boy already has a basket full of eggs for breeding. The R's decided to exchange the Valkyrie monster for the same price as the dragon for sale. Expensive and valuable creatures are called property, as if they are made exclusive, like a collection of luxury cars. But for the business to continue, he needs to do something. The animals he delivered to the Fontana family had their horns cut off. The boy has to find out what effect cutting off the horns has. One of the two will have its horns torn out. The other will not be touched to compare. In a past life, the boy cut off the horns of the Cossacks so that they would not get injured during battles. So he believes that doing so is normal. In any case, he needs to see those creatures as servants who bring comfort to people. Ari apologizes to the creature and asks the creature not to be angry. The boy changed his mind and cut off the horns. All the creatures seemed fine, even the one that lost its horns. But something was different. It seemed to be trying to do something, but could not. Soon, Eri realized that creatures without horns cannot use magic. The boy accumulates mana in his eye. Both monsters, the horned one and the one without horns, retain their magical power. But it seems that one of them can no longer use it. The same happens with people. According to his parents, people who lose both hands can no longer use magic. This happens because mana needs to be accumulated in a fairly small limb, and without fingers, this cannot be done. The same rule applies to horns. If they are cut, using magic will no longer be possible, and this information may come in handy for him. The street vendor said he had never heard of any creature that could use magic and cause trouble, but something more important is happening. If the Valkyrie continues to lay eggs with her magical sting, this species will cease to be unique. Even after the creature's horns were supposedly cut off, it still lives normally. R decided to cut off the horns of all the horses and deer he was going to sell. Someone asked the boy if he had brought something amazing. The boy asks if the priest means the permission from the Fontana family, and he confirms it. However, the man does not talk about a license to sell monsters. In that empty village, the only document he found properly recorded was the baptismal book. On rainy days, when he cannot go to the fields, he goes to church to learn to read. The priest says the document recognizes the pure forest as our property. The boy says his father cares for him and will not mind if taxes are paid in wheat. The priest explains that the significance of that document is not only in taxes, and our boy asks if there was anything in the letter that substantially changes the situation. The priest asks where the land the young man cleared is, and the main character explains that it is in the middle of the forest among the trees. The priest says that there is nothing indicated there about when or where to measure the lands. And paying taxes with money means exactly that. It does not necessarily have to be a farm, and there are no signs of what the land is used for. The priest summarizes that the Fontana family treated him as the dominant. We have it just as confusing. The Fontana family rules over all their territory but cannot control everything that happens, and in exchange for great privileges appoints people to govern. Usually families pay money for the privilege granted to them and send soldiers in case of an emergency. R asks what it means to come from a dominant family, and the priest explains that they probably tried to prevent the boy from being sent somewhere to raise those creatures. They probably thought that by working on the Fontana land, he would be tied to the place, not to the older brother, and he hardly imagined that ours, still a child, could open the land and go beyond family rules. R noted that an ordinary child cannot overcome this plot, and before he realized it, he changed his job to administrator or ruler. The boy notices that it is very easy to expand territory when you are underestimated. However, now he needs to explore. He rides the Valkyrie and goes through the forest, using magic to care for the soil and fell trees. Those without horns drag the logs to another place. The boy levels all the barren land, performing soil leveling work. But even if he expands his lands, the profits will not change. With those 4 letters up his sleeve, he will be able to earn. Selling livestock is enough, but he needs another option. Magic mushrooms and field crops require more labor. He concluded that he must hire several people because he cannot manage alone. He needs people to grow mushrooms or tend the field. Before going on a reconnaissance, he needs to find a part-time worker. As always, he consulted with his relatives to find out if there is anyone in the village who can help him. Ars's brother asks his younger brother not to forget about him. At first the boy willingly agrees to that job, but then refuses. Ars's brother insists and asks if their mother agrees. The woman hesitates. Then she says that as long as both continue to help at home, everything is fine. R notes that if his brother seriously takes up the job, there will be nothing to complain about. but he does not think that will happen. He is worried because he knows Beto, who usually likes to nap and avoid duties, and if he does that at work, he will be fired. The host asks what Beto wants, and the boy has already decided. He wants Ars to give him Valkyrie. He says it is unfair that only Ars can ride it, and the boy says he noticed his brother trying to ride it without permission. So the question is whether Beto really loves Valkyries. The boy says that every man called a hero rides a Valkyrie to save the princess. Every man admires this idea. So Ars hired his brother as his first employee. As soon as he arrives at Ars's storage, Beto says the place is quite neglected and more like a prison. He first criticized this place. It really does not put us in a favorable light. He is a man who grows every day. Now it is time to test his skills because he has always been interested in architecture. He liked the hotel where they spent the night in the city. Moreover, Ars paid close attention to the details of its appearance and arrangement, and he was not just observing. Ars is used as mana to inspect the rooms. Now he only needs to activate the memory preservation magic. To show how he did it, it is similar to creating a model of a building using computer graphics. He tried to study the entire house without missing a single room. When he first tried to inspect it, he fainted due to lack of mana. His hypothesis about the cause of failure is related to flat surfaces and volumes. It was only necessary to reflect the walls, but he filled the entire cube. On the second attempt, he passed mana through the blocks and only memorized the structure of the building. If he had not spent mana filling all the empty spaces, he could have reproduced the entire hotel at once. By observation, it is difficult to reproduce, but it should be easier from memory. First, he needs to send his mana into the ground to create building blocks. Then he will reproduce the manner he memorized. Finally, he will form it so that the blocks connect. We are impressed. He managed to build what he wanted. The experimental reproduction of the hotel was successful. That establishment had a square shape because it was in the city, and with us, for example, one could arrange a stable for Valkyries and a warehouse. However, creation from imagination leaves such gaps. Perhaps he needs to create additions separately. He copied the architecture designed by a professional, so it should be very safe. Although he cannot reproduce doors or anything made of wood, this should be enough. The fact that he was able to build something so large on the first try shows how much he has grown. The boy soon plans to move his base to that house. Ashla asks for some time with her son, and the boy asks what is happening. The man talks about the lumberjacks. Some time passed, and the lumberjack asks what our guy is doing there so early, and if he is looking for magical mushrooms, and the little boy says that it is not quite like that. He heard that the lumberjacks were angry because he was cutting down trees. His relationship with Matic was old. It began when he started supplying magical mushrooms. Matic notices that this is exactly why the boy went to his territory. To avoid unnecessary conflicts with the loggers, Ars decided to consult Matic, who understands this. He brought the man some drinks. His father almost caused a scandal because he had to refuse alcohol. Matic says that it is an exaggeration to say that they are furious, but they do not like how Ar behaves. The guy notices that the problem is probably that he cuts down too many trees. The boy is determined to continue chopping trees to expand his territory, but they can negotiate or suggest chopping only outside their territory. He can go deeper into the forest for firewood. Matic says that it is a good idea, but the guy still seems not to have understood the essence of the problem. Ars suggests that the matter may not be about the loggers, but that he uses Valkyries or did everything himself. The host asks if the lumberjacks are unsure about their professions, but the bearded man says no. The actions of Ars degrade the pride and dignity they have regarding their work, and because of this they are condemned. The main character says he never despised lumberjacks, and Medic asks if that guy doesn't understand. Born into families of lumberjacks, they grew up there and were raised that way all their lives, usually proud of cutting trees. For them, trees are both a means of earning and a treasure. Therefore, they do not think well of those who cut down trees unnecessarily. Ars think that they will feel something upon seeing a boy who cuts trees and leaves them to rot. His actions can be perceived as disrespect to the pride of lumberjacks for their way of life. Ars is silent for a moment, then says he understands. Matic says that using logs as material for city development is something they also want, and they understand that we have obligations regarding burgers. Therefore, none of them have spoken to the boy so far, although it is unpleasant for them. They just want the boy to understand the consequences of his actions. The boy concludes that probably the father heard this from Maddox himself, and they are trying to solve the problem before it grows into something more serious. The boy became so absorbed in self-improvement that he stopped paying attention to the people around him. Ars is quite thoughtful. Maddox likes that the boy still listens to what people say, even having extraordinary abilities. Then the boy asks if Maddox wants to help him with the work. The boy wants to start engaging in forestry immediately. The forest north of the village is so large that people do not know its true size. And although with the help of Valkyrie he managed to significantly reduce the forest area, deforestation still remains a serious problem. The soil will lose its ability to retain water and nutrients. If the situation worsens, this place may turn into a desert in the future. The problem is that if this continues, they will not have enough firewood, so they will not survive the winter. R says that this is exactly why he really wants to create a responsible administration for forest restoration. Plant trees with enough distance between them so that they can get good light. So they will have trees. The boy says he knows about agriculture but does not understand the forest, so experts like Matic and other lumberjacks would be very helpful. This option might be enough to satisfy both him and the lumberjack. Matic says that the forces of nature should not be used only according to human desires. R asks if the man understands that forest restoration has benefits, and Matic says he will discuss it with others. Matic managed to convince the group of lumberjacks by saying that it is better for them to agree than to allow Ars to do whatever he wants with the forest. After that event, the northern part of the village was taken under the care of Arsis, and everyone agreed on that. After some time, Arsket is pleased because he has several logs for growing mushrooms. He is grateful to Matochev because now he can expand his farm. Madoka was appointed to manage the forest. Ars left the doors and the property of the premises with the locksmith. He entrusted the care of the plants to his brother Beto. However, the number of people quickly increased. Surprisingly, Beto was very good at managing people. The main character asks one of them where his brother is, and the boy replies that he went to train riding beasts. R notices that Beto left all his work on the shoulders of others. He apologizes to the man and the child who tell him not to worry, and helping with planting also receive a share of the harvest. That little boy lost his parents because of the war, and he is a man without a job because there are not enough vacancies in the village, so they are grateful for this opportunity. If it were his duty, he would only think of hiring those people and paying them in cash, but his brother went further. Thanks to this change, Ars was able to focus on developing work with monsters and growing magical mushrooms in the same place. Do they ask if the field is being destroyed? Beto says they found traces of wild boars in the fields, and Maddox says they noticed signs of 2 adult boars and piglets. R says it's not a big problem. Beto doesn't understand how he can be so calm and says it's very serious because people refuse to work out of fear of the boars. Oris has already encountered boars entering the pasture, but even when traps were set, the boars were cunning enough not to get caught. The reason for this problem is obvious. It happens because the boy decided to expand his development into the forest. Some trees in the forest still remain, but he cut down most of them, so even the food chain was disrupted, and some animals lost their territories. However, Ars thinks that if he leaves the boars that eat his crops, the next generation will do the same. He has to solve this problem because he is responsible for this land, and must do it for the people who work in the fields. There the boars eat the entire harvest. Hiding and watching the boars, we are amazed by their size, and Beto says that even arrows cannot pierce their skin. Then the main character asks his brother what they should do, and Beto says that Ars need to solve the problem. The boy says that they need to talk to the bourgeoisie and find out if they can destroy those monsters for them. But Maddox says that most likely they will just be told to solve this problem themselves. Ars asks for some time to think. Then he begins to approach the boars on Valkyrie. He tells his companion that they must act exactly according to the plan. The boy must meet that creature face to face. If that huge monster attacks, they will have no chance to survive and everything will end badly. Valkyrie notices that R is trembling. His heart is beating fast, and the horse closes its eyes. We feel warmth. Then he notices that Valkyrie is waiting for him to calm down. The boy closes his eyes along with his mare. Then they continue to advance, this time more confidently. Then Valkyrie starts running. She gallops quickly. It is very difficult to aim on Valkyrie's back at high speed, so he came up with something else. R shoots a scattered shot towards the wild boars. Small stones hit the large creature. He fired several stones at once. Valkyrie continues to run very fast. R still hasn't been able to turn it into a spell but is doing his best. He is still weak because he does not touch the ground. The wild boar roars. Then it starts chasing Valkyrie and Ars, who are running away. Valkyrie runs into the forest. Wild boars are quite fast. Staying away from those giant creatures is very difficult. Then one of us has an idea. The main weapon of that strategy is not the stone shot he made. Ars shouts for Valkyrie to jump using physical enchantment. The mare moves as if she fully understands the boy's intentions. She is his most incredible partner. They jump off the cliff and the feeling is like flying. Around them are several birds. We are amazed. They are flying. Then Valkyrie hits the ground. Although they have incredible physical abilities, physical enchantment raised them to another level. Then they hear the roar of wild boars and then their footsteps. This is the trape device for that strategy. Wild boars fell to the bottom of the ravine dead. There are doubts that after falling from such a height, do they have any trace of life? The trap he made was the only one that could combine his earth magic with the speed of the Valkyrie, and he at least plans to eat those boars. Then Ars tell them to go home. And so ended the first fight in the boys' lives. Beto is happy for his brother, and Madoc is impressed that the boy was able to defeat a wild boar on his own. Ars says that from now on everything will be fine. And Beto asks what the boy is talking about. Then Beto says that there is not just one giant wild boar here. The boy is excited and says that he will leave the next boars for us. The main character is outraged because for him it was a terrible experience. Since then he has been dealing with large wild boars when they appeared. Ars continued to lead scattered fire. He trains with a tree. It is dangerous to allow a giant monster to approach, so he needs to improve long-range attacks. The boy picked up stones and sharpened them to attack, but the power still does not work far, reaching only 20 or 30 meters. Although the development of long-range attack is going well, the boy still cannot destroy the wild boar with its help. Then the main character decides to find a way to protect the field, because the most effective defense is against what is outside. This is done with the help of a defensive wall or fence. The essence of the strategy is to surround the entire field with a wall. They say you need to learn from the wisdom of the ancestors. Ars says that they need to start building the wall where the field meets the forest. In addition, it should cover the areas he plans to plant in the future. A large hole appeared in the trap when one of the wild boars hit its wall. So the defense must be very strong and reliable. Excessive caution never hurts. Then Ars start to raise that wall. He places a post embedded 5 meters deep and 10 meters high. The guy worked well there, but he filled it with sand, so he doesn't think that's enough. He can only make walls 5 meters high, so he has to build several of them and then connect them. However, as during the construction of the hotel, Ars feels that his mana is much greater. However, he does not see the end of his plantation because it is very large. If building the wall was already a spell, he could do it much more easily. But turning something into a spell requires a lot of time and effort. The hardest part is to repeat the same magic. It took him several months to understand how to create a spell that makes bricks. However, he was able to create the wall creation spell quite quickly. He sent mana into the structure and fixed its shape in memory. Thanks to this, it became easier to reproduce the same magic again and again. So he was able to turn it into a spell much faster than other things. Moreover, the Valkyrie also begins to act. Valkyries can use the same spells as Arios with the help of horns. So the boy took several of these creatures to help him build the wall. After considerable work, we offer magical mushrooms for energy restoration. Since the boy still doesn't know how to brew restorative potions, this mushroom should be enough. Now they succeeded. They built a wall 4 kilometers long. Then, showing it to his brother, Ars asks what Beto thinks about the wall, and he replies that he liked it, but he doesn't know where the entrance to that place is. Ar admits that he forgot to think about it. Bidu suggests laying a path to the entrance to guide people. We built roads, but they became ineffective and shaky. So it's time to take advantage of this and make a real road. He will make 2 entrances, one for the village and one for the forest. Concrete and asphalt roads are good, but they need frequent repairs, so he mentions a type of road that can last many years. This is a road built by the Roman Empire, probably suitable. The first step is to dig a trench at the site of the future road. Then fill it with stones and clay. Finally, close the opening with stones. The only problem is that such a road can only be laid in a straight line, and it is possible only after reaching a high technical level. Arsis is in a bad mood, and someone asks what happened. This is Carl, his younger brother, who was appointed a few days ago. Ars says the boy rarely visits there, and he replies that he came after helping at home. Carl complains that Beto and Ars always come home very late because they are busy all the time. Carl asks what his brother is thinking about, and Ars says that his glass windows did not sell. Then the little boy says that they have many of them in the pantry, and Mom is already complaining about it. Ars says that the inspiration for the new product came during a walk around the city. Carl says that people seem to be satisfied with everything in life, so they do not want anything new, and that is the problem. Considering their economy, it makes no sense for people to buy what is not strictly necessary. Still, Ars is depressed and says that he has nothing to sell. Carl says that if it were him, he would want those wooden furniture pieces. He thought that since the last time, everything here had become really cool. Ars says that they were made by lumberjacks. Carl says that he was attracted by the strong smell of wood. Despite this, the lumberjacks do not sell the furniture they make, maybe because it is hard to carry. In the city, people treat furniture very carefully, so there is no demand for it there, and the only chance to sell is to go to the city. R says that Carl's idea was good, and he will talk to the lumberjacks. The boy always looked for products that were not created by his magic. Maybe he exaggerates a bit, but he believes that without him the village's economy would collapse. Now that our man has expanded his lands, he should think about how to provide stability to others. Carl is fascinated and says that his brother is wonderful. R says that Carl will also be able to do a lot when he grows up, but for now he should play a lot. Then Carl teases him and says that they are almost the same age, only 2 years apart. Then the little one tells his brother that he wants to learn magic and heard that he even taught Beto. R complains that when he tried to teach Beto magic, their mother got angry. It all started when Beto asked Ars how he could carry things that Beto himself could not carry. It was then that he began to apply physical enchantment to his own body to see if it worked. He wanted to find out if other people would feel the same effect, and he began to teach Beto to control mana. However, Beto had no talent for earth magic. Nevertheless, the boy mastered physical enchantment in a short time, but eventually he used it to fight people in the village. Ars does not understand the habits of children's fights, but Beto eventually became unbeatable in them. The little children were outraged and called the elders to beat Beto, but the boy remained undefeated. Ars says that without Beto's technique he wouldn't have developed so much, but he is tall and strong, and that helps. After that, Beto started coming home with various bruises. Older boys who couldn't defeat him alone began to band together. Despite this, Beto did not back down and returned again and again, no matter how many times he was defeated. With the experience gained in many fights, his strength quickly increased, but their mother was very upset and began to blame herself. Beto continued to fight and quit his job, no matter how many times he was complained to, and his mother cried from time to time. Over time, there was no one left who could stand against Beto. Therefore, Ours decided not to teach magic irresponsibly. Still, if Kalos wants to learn magic, someone among us can teach him, because the boy is smart and does not show off his muscles. R notes that mana can be concentrated in the brain to improve memory, calculation speed, thinking, and other brain functions. So, teaching Kalos will make him smarter. R even reflects on his actions but does not regret them. The reason why Beto defeats people in the village so well is that he fights skillfully. But now he wants to teach Kalos to use his mind, not muscles. Ars could teach his brother to count and read, and he would become the administrator the village desperately needs. If Kalos does well, he will truly help with the work. The traveler steps onto the road. He is interested in meeting the great man who defeated the giant boar. The traveler calls himself Gran and says he is a merchant who creates things. He heard that giant boars attacked the village and went there to check. R asks if he is from the east, and the man says it is his birthplace. The main character doubts whether this is a continental island. Despite this, Grant says it is not exactly an island and asks to find out if our guy knows about such a place, but the boy changes the subject. R says he is glad to meet him, and the giant boar carcass is damaged, but he can look if he wants. Grant says he would also like to meet the great man who managed to destroy that guy and asks if our guy knows him. The boy says that it is him. The man seems not to believe this, and R says he set a trap and left with his partner. Grant is outraged and says this must be a mistake. He heard that giant boars attacked the village near the northern edge of the forest. Beto appears and says that there were only a few boars, and he does not understand why that man wants to see a single boar in the game right now. Then asks serious questions if they do not know. Giant boars can enhance themselves. R says that is exactly why they cannot pierce the monster's skin, and Grant agrees. They can make various items from materials obtained from these boars. Ars excitedly asks if a sword harder than metal can be made from boar bristles, and the boy is glad he preserved the carcasses. Grant traveled for a long time in search of good materials, and Ars asks if this man can make weapons. Gren says yes, and Ars is very happy. The man has access to the bones of adult boars and piglets. Ars asks what he thinks about it, and Grant says he needs to take a look. He says it is incredible and truly a magical creature. R even managed to destroy that boar while it was casting a spell on the boy, because there are traces of mana there. If you fight a magical monster, there is a high probability that the material will be of high quality, and the mana conductivity will be much better. Ours is happy because the man will make him a weapon from the bones of that boar. Then Grant says there is a problem. The man says that for this he needs the appropriate materials, and in that village there is nothing needed, so it is impossible to do. Or does he need the questions themselves? Grant says that he needs a furnace that can withstand high temperatures, and that for the catalyst he needs the central mana of some magical creature. And Ars replies that the furnace is clear, but he does not know what central mana is. Gran explains that central mana is a part of a magical creature that allows it to use magic, and in humans it is in the hands. R looks for a horn among his animals and clarifies whether it will work, and if so, only the problem with the furnace remains to be solved. Grand rejoiced and asked to see that material. R notices that the man treats it as if it were a valuable antique. Grant says that it is just a game of luck, but he believes that it can be used. He doubts whether those horns belong to creatures that work in that place, and R says that he is impressed that the man knows about it. He says that he knows about monsters that can use magic, as well as about places where mana core is regularly extracted for research. Still, he did not think that this was one of those villages. R rejoiced and asked if there are servant monsters who can use magic, and Grant confirmed. Creatures that can use magic are considered Class A products. R understands that he needs to revise the price of the Valkyries, and if the merchant has been hiding this information from him all along, he will have to pay for it. People ask if a furnace is needed for this, and Grant says that a furnace is necessary, but they will also need a few other things. A little boy says he will try to make a furnace. The bricks he made withstand heat better than clay, but he does not know what temperature they can withstand because he has never tested them. But to get the weapon, he is ready for anything. That is exactly what he wanted to do. But Grant told him that even if they made a furnace, they would need wind to raise the temperature. So that is why they need 2 pairs of lungs. One of ours complains that he cannot create this because he only knows how to work with soil. Grant says that the boy will never get a weapon if he does not move forward. R underestimated how much passion the creator puts into his project. Carl waits for R and notices that his brother did not return home that day. The stove and artificial light are made. Grant says that it is incredible and that, besides the fact that it works wonderfully near the stove, ours also work well in the workshop, and the boy says that he needs to go to sleep. But Grant says that they are not finished yet because they need coal to heat the stove or to make a stove for coal production. If you just burn wood, it will turn into ash. To avoid this, you need to seal the space and prevent air from escaping. Ours creates something like an igloo for them so that they make coal. Grant says that he has traveled many places on that continent but has not found a place where all the things he needs are. Very excited, he puts his hand on Ars's shoulder and says that it is time to light the stove. The most important thing is to take the first step. But Ars runs away as fast as he can. Serious questions about where the boy is going. The main character does not think he can handle this anymore. Carl is pleased when he hears that his brother is leaving. The boy is very tired. Ars asked Carl to follow the strange man and help him. A small child asks if the man is talking about Grand. The main character asks if he understands and says that the trip there will give him experience for the future. Carl asks if Ars is running away. The boy says no and even made a kiln for making charcoal. R notes that if they look for high-quality charcoal in that area, the value of this land will be even higher. When Ars was exhausted, he had to send his brother to deal with Grant. Soon Ars returned and Grant spoke with him. Then he said that the mission succeeded thanks to Carl's efforts. Carl lies on the ground unconscious and exhausted. Then Grant explains that the little child had to constantly raise the temperature of the kiln. Ars deeply regrets his brother. Grant says that during his work he made many things, but products of such quality are rare. This is one of his best works. Mars holds that sword. The blade shines like a pearl. He feels that there is a glow in that weapon. The main character notices that it is quite bright and admits that it is brighter than a metal sword. Despite this, it is still possible to cut down enemies. He can cover the sword with mana whenever he wants. Grant says that he would like to leave something for us. This is a sword made from a piglet's tusk. Ask if it is a dagger and if it is worth using for self-defense. Grant says that it looks like a dagger, but that will change. A weapon created by pig magic has the property of growing. It feeds on mana and develops. This means that when that dagger grows to the size of a regular sword, it will become much stronger. Grant says that the sword will not strengthen from the mana of one person. It must pass between people to become a powerful weapon. This weapon is called the Legacy Sword. Probably the nobility had such swords. Thank you for the gift. Grant enthusiastically says that it is not every day that a creator has access to a large amount of quality materials. Then Grant says that he was very lucky to have found us. The boy said that he wanted to find out if Grant wanted to stay there and continue making crafts, because he still had enough material to work with. The main character took the opportunity and asked if that sword had a name. Grant says that magical weapons are named by their creator. Then he says that he would like the main character to name the sword Kalgatum Guram. Thus our hero received his first sword. Then he went to help his younger brother. He gave Carl magical mushrooms. Grant is impressed by the number of magical mushrooms we have accumulated. Ars says that he did not know that mushrooms had anything to do with blacksmithing, and Grant replies that they are the most common catalyst. This is the place that every craftsman has always dreamed of. For growing mushrooms, we have a designated place on the wall where the sun does not reach. In addition, the lumberjacks help a lot. They insert mushrooms into the trunks, and after a few years he collects them. Ars says that he does not mind Grant using mushrooms to make weapons, but they should not use them all, because it is his mana reserve. Then Grant says that he understands and that these are supplies for making potions, but Ars explains that he does not know how to make potions. He eats mushrooms only to restore mana. Grant says that this is very primitive. Then he asks if a potion can be made from that mushroom. Ars is impressed by the man's skill. The man says that it is best to first use those mushrooms for mana potions, and Ours asks to watch the process. Grant agrees. He wants the guy to understand how potions are made and even participate in the preparation. The worried man goes to try to wait for Carl. Ours leads his brother to bed and says that he can continue to rest. But when he wakes up, he must come and find them. You are excited. They say that it is time to start the second part of creating the item. R drinks the mana potion and notices that it tastes like tea. It is made the same way. Mushrooms are boiled and immediately crushed. Then all that remains is to put it in a jar with water and mix well. Grant notices that thanks to the coal they managed to boil the mushroom, and Ars asks him what weapon that man intends to make from crystallized marshmallows. He replies that this time he thought of making armor, and the host is very excited. Armor needs to be tanned during washing in a magical potion. Of course, it won't be perfect, but it will be better than most armor. We are glad that Grand can make so many things. Thank you for coming to his village. Very excited, Grand tells must prepare to not sleep for the next few nights. R is disappointed because he won't be able to sleep properly. Ars would die from exhaustion if he didn't have a recovery spell. Finally, the armor is ready. It was made from the skin of giant boars. Grant says it turned out very well, but it is not our size, and the boy says he will wear it when he grows up. Despite his preferences, this will greatly help find people who experience failures in these areas. Armor fit Beto. R plans to use this when it no longer fits his brother. Very excited. Grant asks what they should do next. R says they should take a break, and the man is going through a crisis. Ars asks if he wants to teach his workers how to make the product. Still, Grant says he prefers making new things. The boy thinks they need to find something that will awaken creativity in the man, then says he wants him to build a house from those bricks. Grant stood by the bricks and did not know what to do. R says he cannot take more bricks than he has there. The boy's idea is for Grant to build a creative house that the young man can use as a mold. The main character asks Grant to build a spacious building from those bricks and make it resident-oriented. Grant considers this request interesting. Then he begins to accept the challenge. RS also thinks about testing something. He wants to test materials made in a furnace from the horns of Valkyries. The protagonist gathers all the items in one place: mana potion, clay, magic bricks, Valkyrie horn, and the tusk of a giant boar. Ars plans to make a stronger brick by breaking the one he has, mixing it with clay, and forming a new one. He decided to use his knowledge from a past life for this. Then he mixes the horns and tusks into the clay and adds the potion. He made several samples with different percentages of each material. After forming it, he put it into a mold. But he only managed to create a bunch of defects. However, our protagonist persistently continues his attempts and makes another mixture. When he hits with the hammer this time, a noise is heard, and a little boy watches it. The brick is whole. Unlike the brown bricks he usually makes, this brick here is marble. Simply by adding a catalyst and materials, he was able to create something of that level. He always wanted to break his power like metal. R reflects on his memories and how the feelings of his past life emerged from his imagination, so he wanted to do it manually. He was able to create a brick as strong as metal in that world. But this is not the end of the experiments. R holds the brick and uses magic. He sets memory preservation to decorate the structure of the brick. Then he places both hands on the ground. Now he has a new spell for creating strong bricks. So he can create these bricks without horns and fangs, and yet, this is still far from what the boy imagined about Roman roads. To create a Roman road, he needs to apply the settling spell. He tried, but couldn't do it with those hard bricks. In any case, it's better for vehicles when the road is flat. Now he needs to raise the edges to make sidewalks for pedestrians. When Ars meets Grant again, a huge building is being erected for him. The boy notices that there is much more space than he thought, and Grant says he made a few windows to save building materials. The R1s finished making the roads, and Grant was very proud of his work. He made huge doors and several glass windows. Grant says that Carl told him that we had a few glass windows that he couldn't sell. The boy notices that if Grant makes artistic architecture, he can save materials and add details to the building. The main character is impressed that the man was even able to use the principles of physics to create the best possible structures. He thanks Grant and says that it is much more spacious than the hotel he made. R says he will pay the boy for the work, and Grant says it will be useful. Also, Grant wants to ask permission to build his own house. The man lived as a traveler, moving from place to place, but always dreamed of finding a place where he could live without worries and considered it the best option. Ars had already received requests from villagers to build their houses inside the wall, and refused everyone because it is the home of the Valkyries. However, you don't meet such an amazing creator as Grant every day, so we authorize him. Thus, Grant became the first to settle on his territory. Our guy is going home to eat because his mother always cooks very tasty food. Moreover, if Grant is nearby, there is no need to worry. The older brother of the main character is engaged, and by custom, the eldest son inherits the house and land. However, he is only 14 years old, so it is very early, and the house is already becoming cramped. If the father dies, the house and land will be passed to the older brother, who will then pass everything to his firstborn. His family gets along very well, so our family loves being with them. Mary asks if Ars wants another serving. The boy was ready for independence from the age of 5. He asks his mother for another serving and extends the bowl. He decided to leave his parental home. He wants to start by preparing the plot for construction. At first, he will move the base further south from the wall to the middle of the plot. Then, using his mana, he will recreate the house that Gran built. However, he will replace the ordinary bricks with super strong ones, so the house will look like it is made of marble. Using his very strong bricks, he can build a wall 1 kilometer long around his house. He then plans to asphalt the roads leading from the center to the exits. R plans to place Gran's hut in the south near the village, but he is truly a very passionate creator. He has already built his house after obtaining permission, and we plan to preserve that project using his influence. The main character also built several ends near the road to Beto. He also wanted to leave home, so he settled in a hotel and rents rooms to people working in the field. Ars decided that the forest to the north will become a forest restoration zone, where loggers can work and where a den will be arranged. So Matica and others should be relocated to that zone. The northern forest still requires many changes in the future. The central part is Ars's home. Here are the dwellings of the Valkyries and fields with magical mushrooms, and he does not plan to allow the horned Valkyries to leave this zone. This is how our team developed the plan for the development of that land. When he finished with the partitions and was about to move, he was already 9 years old. The merchant seems outraged that R gave part of his lands to the traveler. He asks why the boy did not tell him anything, and the main character replies that he did not know the merchant needed the land. Then the man says that he did not plan to travel all his life and wants to build his own shop, so he asks that we also give him land. Remembering something, the boy says that the merchant lied to him when he claimed that there are no beasts that can use magic. The man doubts that they are on the same level, because he also did not know that Valkyries use magic. Ars learned that these creatures have magic and are considered luxury items. But since before that he only sold hornless Valkyries, they could not use magic. Then the boy says he will allow the merchant to open his shopping center there. The main character says that he would like it to be a grocery store, and the merchant replies that he will think about it. Then he says that he has something to say to the boy. There are rumors that there is a group of dangerous people in those parts. They are talking about ours. The boy is considered very dangerous. The main character is outraged because he is very pure and angelic. Then he says that he did nothing dangerous. The merchant says that he suddenly built a huge fortress with walls. From this side, it can be assumed that the local nobility, which governs the region, is dissatisfied with such a phenomenon. It is almost time to pay taxes, so tax inspectors will come soon, and ours must be ready to answer all their questions. Last time, when taxes were collected, they did not ask much. The main character asks what the man says, and he shouts that he does not need to repeat himself. This land will be declared the property of Fontaine. They will take this place, and if ours decides to resist, he may be arrested. Taxes are collected every year. The peasants put the wheat in one storage and then send a representative to deliver all the wheat to the tax collector. He always paid taxes in gold because the tax collectors came to his house to collect the payment. Therefore, he had to be hospitable. Usually he just ate before giving the gold and left. Now the territory of Arsa would pass to the Fontaine family, and any resistance from it would be directed against the bourgeoisie. That is exactly what the merchant was talking about. The tax collector said that there are many dangerous people in that region, so ours will also receive protection from the royal family, especially because he raises important creatures. For people, it may seem that it is best to protect the Valkyries. Even if their freedom is restricted, they will no longer worry about food or war. He must be happy because he grew up in that village as a poor child. But he doesn't care. He remembers the free and rich world from his past life, and now he no longer wants to live in captivity. Suddenly a permitted noise is heard. The tax collector asks what it is. R understands that the noise was coming from the stable, so he runs to help the Valkyries. The main character hears his brother shouting for something not to move. When he comes, he is in shock. Carlos was thrown to the ground along with the Valkyrie. A young man asks what R wants, and holding a sword, asks if the main character will also stand in his way. He was already about to grab that creature when Carl jumped on him. Then he quickly prepared to attack Ars with his big sword. Ars got nervous. Suddenly Beto enters the room and calls his brother. He is worried about Ars and Carl. The main character begins to wake up. Carl is okay, but still unconscious. It seems the Valkyrie protected him. He has a wound on his head, but nothing serious. Beta asks how R is doing. The boy tenses up. He remembers the moment when the man raised the sword to finish him off. At that moment, his power awakened. With a quick and precise strike, he hit the young man's stomach. His strike hit the man who fell to the ground. Ars says that he is fine. He did not get a single scratch. Beto says he does not mean physical injuries, but Ars does not want to talk about it. Beto says that their father will try to talk to the people waiting for news and will join after Carl wakes up. Ars is glad that his brother did not insist on this topic. He fearlessly shot a stone cannonball at the soldier, and he instantly died. Even the merchant does not know how Ars will get out of this. If that soldier returns and tells about the incident with the Fontana family, they will likely bring an army there, and Ars is thinking about just running away. Grant says they can try to go to another land ruled by another nobility. If they have problems with the Fontanas, they will gain an ally. They should be very glad to keep Ars nearby because he knows how to raise effective monsters. The problem is that in the new place, they will treat him the same way as the Fontana family. If an ordinary person goes to a noble, is it too much to ask for freedom? Baito says that they are crazy, and if the army comes, they have no choice but to fight back. He doubts whether we are really calm because his land was stolen, and believes that all his hard work since childhood has lost its meaning. Moreover, he killed a soldier. Next time Carl might not survive, and the soldiers could kill them all, so there is no reason not to fight. R says that no matter how much magic he has, he cannot fight an army. Beto shouts for him not to do stupid things, and his brother is ready to fight him and says that the older brother must protect the younger. Besides, he manages Valkyrie much better. Maddox says that he will also join because he cannot just stand and watch a child who is almost like his grandson being killed. He is ready to take our side if the boy decides to fight. When he began restoring the forests, people from the forestry service, furnace workers, coal producers, and lumberjacks stopped worrying about how to put food on the table. The letter R became the main element for the lumberjacks. They will be forever grateful to the boy for their lives. A little boy hugs Maddox and thanks him. His father takes a deep breath. He says that if everyone is ready to go that far, he as a father will not stay behind. As Arsa's father, he decided to be by his side. It is his duty as a father to protect his family. R honestly never thought he would have even one ally willing to risk their own life. The merchant says that if everyone does so, he will also help and gather information from others. R doubts that merchants do anything just for a reward, and the man says that if the boy leaves, he will no longer be able to sell creatures. Besides, he treats that old man the same way. In any case, he believes in us and should think about how to gain support. The boy thinks very well about such things. The main character says that when all this is over, he will prepare a large plot of land for the merchant. The only reason he enjoys life is that he was free, and that is exactly what it is about. Everyone there is ready to fight for their freedom, to protect his family, that place, and everyone who lives there. For freedom, ours will fight against the nobles. He must start recruiting people. If he pays them money, they will probably leave when it gets tough. He needs to find volunteers. Perhaps a reward for standing against the lords. Ars says he decided to give a reward to those who cooperate. That way, they will have an incentive to risk their lives. He will be given a unique magic that involves improving the soil, leveling it, and building massive walls, and those who have been watching the boy understand how incredible this reward is. He says that through the naming ritual one can obtain that magic, and from now on he will be called Ars Baruka. That village will be called Baruka, and all its inhabitants will have their surnames changed to Baruka. From then on they will be called the Baruka family. Medic says that is a bit much, but if they are going to fight the Fontana family, they need to raise their status so their negotiations will be taken seriously. The boy's father says he has never heard of anyone except a priest who could conduct a naming ceremony, and as far as they know, it is impossible. However, Ars's trump card is the magic circle. Ars says that if they stay close to him, they will be called Baruka. The risk of the magic circle ceremony is that there are many unknown factors. For example, due to the risk of using the magic circle on a person who already has a name, he decided to make Baruka a surname rather than change the name. R creates a magic circle before himself. Then he gives Beto, Asiri, and Triana the surname Baruka. He does the same with Madark and Gran, all in the name of Ars Baruka. Every person there must be named. The only thing Beto remembers from childhood is that he was very hungry. The family had to spend all their supplies to pay the fees. At that time, his 3-year-old brother began working in the fields. Then Beto realized that he was wasting his strength on something that would never work. But we managed to get extremely fertile land. Beto never understood how he managed it, but the success was noticeable. He even became stronger than Beto himself, although he was 2 years younger. The boy never understood how Ars became so strong. It was then that his brother told him his method without hesitation. Beto did not understand everything because it is very complicated, but it seems the point is to accumulate mana in the body. He trained to strengthen his body and help in the field, while we were busy with repairs to expand the premises. People were surprised when they found out that Ars took care of Asher's fields. They also wanted the boy to help them. That time Ars said he couldn't do it because he had other obligations. Because of this incident, everyone in the village started saying that he was a bad person. The adults did not show it, but Beto heard people saying that Ars only cared about himself and was a bad person. They planned to get rid of the boy. Ars is almost better than Beto in a fight, but the truth is that most of the time he doesn't understand what the boy is thinking. However, Ars still remains his younger brother. He decided to take revenge on everyone who spoke badly about him and planned to harm him. He felt guilty because he left his mother worried, as he came home wounded several times. However, he could not leave unpunished the people who wanted to harm his brother. MC says that he is too focused on the strike. To fight better, he needs to work on his waist and hips. Beto was outraged by the mockery because he was fighting for his brother. Ars skillfully used his body, and Beto had already tried to fight him several times. So Beto trained with motivation from Ars to never lose again to opponents who were not older than him. When he became stronger, he gained supporters. Meanwhile, Ars was tending the eggs to raise new monsters and offer them to the nobility. He even destroyed a huge boar that tried to destroy the village. Bidu considers his brother impressive, but does not want to lose to him. He trains to simultaneously ride a Velker and wield a sword. Thanks to this, he became stronger. He wants to be able to defeat the giant boar and does not want to lose to knights. All this is because he is our older brother. Magic reigns around Beto. Arts falls to the ground exhausted. This magic is too strong for his mind. Try it on him, he is in shock. Grant says that it was incredible magic, and Beto says that ours is very wonderful. A little boy notices and says that it seems he has succeeded. Thanks to this, Beto can become even stronger. The boy wants them to talk to the villagers and convince them to unite. They need to tell everyone that the nobility plans to take away their land and everything they have. Besides, they are going to kill Carl and Ars. They are going to fight to protect themselves and their rights from those nobles and their tyranny. The boy hopes to count on everyone there. And everyone who rises with their family will receive their magic and a portion of the land. Ars wants them to appeal to their emotions and show that helping him is worthwhile. Beto immediately goes and says he will handle it himself, and Maddox says he will talk to the other lumberjacks. The main character talks with the trio, hoping to learn more. The man says he will look for data about the enemy troops. Then he extends his hand to Ars, says he leaves it to him, and asks the boy to be careful. Tryon looks very serious. He asks Ars to be careful not to die. The boy responds by squeezing his hand and agreeing. The boy did not expect to hear such a phrase, but to be in front of the nobles, being from a farmer's family, was very unusual. He still has to come up with a backup plan if he can't gather enough people. Usually they take 50 people to war at a time. Compared to that, 78 people is quite a lot. Maddox says the lumberjacks also agreed to help, and since they are strong, their help will be significant. Beto is also very popular among the youth and managed to attract them. The guy constantly grumbles, even though he was the one who gave them jobs. There is a big factor. The young man tells Mary that he is going where R is, and asks Ira to take care of their mother, while someone asks if everything is okay and talks to Hector. Hector says they will be fine as long as Ars is nearby. He is the brother of the boy who married too early. The reason for this is that she was the daughter of the chief. Ars thinks her father probably wanted to give her land if she married Hector. The village of Baruka has transformed. R used his magical circle power on everyone who appeared there. People are happy because it will make farm work much easier. They are very grateful to Ars, but the boy is exhausted. Beto asks his brother if he finished naming everyone. The main character says yes, but he was only able to do it thanks to the recovery potion. His brother Beto asks what kind of clothes these are, and Ars says that Hector brought them to him. Their mother made this. She planned to give it to him for his birthday, but changed her mind because the war was about to start. Nervous Beto says it's time for them to go and catch the enemies by surprise, but Ars asks his brother to wait a little. Beto asks what they should do now, because it's pointless to just wait, and Ars says they need to wait until the trader returns with information. The boy thinks it's impossible to protect 100 people along 4 kilometers of wall. The walls he built were designed for giant boars, not for human infiltration. His fighting force will probably initially be stronger than the peasants' strength. R hurries and says they need to move forward. Beto is very excited. Then the boy says that despite this, they are not going to the city. They will move to neighboring villages to the south. The idea is to explain why they want to oppose the nobility, even though many people might consider the war unnecessary. But still, many people suffer from hunger and hypothermia. These are people who no longer love the nobles who collect large taxes and ignore the hunger. The R approach is a different village. Everyone is very nervous and seems unwilling to listen to what he has to say. The boy's father says that any village would have acted the same if someone came so armed, and everyone looks at our village with hatred. R notices that they ended up on the village territory without saying why they came here. Then someone calls him. The boy with the huge sword asks what they want. R notices that a sword of the same size as his is quite rare. These farmers use tritons as weapons, and a real sword is very rare among them. Even from an economic point of view, most people would choose a weapon that requires less metal, not such a large sword. Ars's father notices that the boy is Vargas. He is considered a hero in that area, and he made a name for himself in several wars. He left, but it seems he returned. The situation will worsen if our guy doesn't come up with something soon. Then Baito starts shouting that the Fontana family is spreading their tyranny over the residents of Baruca, who do not want to submit to the Lord's oppression, so everyone there must join them. Vargas points a sword at Beto. However, the boys were in armor made from the leather of a giant boar. Moreover, he is riding a Valkyrie. No one would think that this guy is the second son of a peasant family. The pressure Vargas exerts matters, but Bato's equipment is almost on par. Now they can speak on equal terms. Vargas asks Beto if he is the famous one from Baruca who defeated the Boers. Beto says that it is not him and calls our guys. Then he says that his younger brother faced those giant creatures. Vargas says that it is a funny joke. He says that he could laugh at this for hours and tells the small group to go back home. Beto is nervous and shouts for them to cooperate, saying that Vargas should take responsibility instead of playing with his fantasies. Two of them started shouting at each other, very upset. It looks like it will all end in a fight. Then Ars decides to intervene and attacks. He throws small stones on the ground at high speed. Then he asks everyone to lower their weapons. We have everything fully determined. Then he says that he came only for a peaceful conversation. Vargas is impressed that it was a magical attack. Then he says that if the guy is going to attack him, he will take him down. Vargas runs towards us, and the main character is worried because he thought the boy would stop. He runs very fast. If Ars somehow does not stop his movement, he will be in danger. The main character attacks with a stone near Vargas, but the man manages to dodge and counterattack with a sword. Ars can hardly believe that he repelled his attack and acted without hesitation. It seems Vargas analyzed that Ars has to turn his hand in the direction he is going to attack. If it continues like this, it will be a big problem. The young man understands that everyone in that village owes Vargas. Ars constantly try to attack him, again and again. The boy's father says that Vargas is not someone he can defeat in that way. If it continues like this, he will simply waste all his mana. The young man aimed at the place where he thought Vargas would not defend, and he hoped that this spot would bring the best result. Then he struck Vargas directly, yet the man crossed the trajectory, running towards it. Vargas stops right in front of our car. Now he caught the boy. The main character can hardly believe that Vargas was unharmed. But maybe it is the ability to become more resilient. He can do something similar with his physical enchantment. It seems Vargas gained the ability to improve his defense in battle. Ars smiles after understanding, then prepares to use his power again. He hits Vargas right in the chest. To make the man fly, Vargas's sword breaks and falls to the ground. People are stunned by this. Art says that the winner has already been determined. Vargas must surrender. Then the boy asks what that was, what hit him. He is lying on the ground. R explains that it was a shot with stones, so he constantly used those attacks against counterattacks. RS is very glad to find out. Someone with the same ability as his. Moreover, he is glad that he tested the effectiveness of his strike on people who really have combat experience. Vargas placed the sword in front of himself, to use as a shield to reduce damage. Now he needs a person like Vargas. Ars extends his hand to the man, who takes it and stands up. The man says he surrenders but asks us not to harm the villagers. These are not our intentions. Even so, it is worth considering because all his men are armed. R says that he has no intention to harm anyone. He just wants to join them to fight against the nobility. Vargas promises to fight alongside us. Meanwhile in the kingdom, someone says that this problem happened because of his negligence. Now he will lead his army to Villa Baruca. He swears to do it in the name of the Fontana family. A brick is being created. Vargas notes that he never thought he could use magic like this. Ars gave the name Baruca to everyone in the village who wanted to join him. It's good that among those people a sense of unity is forming, although the fight with Vargas was unexpected. As a result, he was able to show his combat abilities and unite everyone around one cause. Ars defeated the hero Vargas. Ars must be very strong then. If they are with him, they will be able to defeat the nobles. Apparently, there were people who intended to abandon him if they found themselves in a disadvantageous situation. But after the fight with Vargas, that changed. Everyone feels that they are fighting for their own freedom, and Vargas asks the general what the next step will be. Ars is confused about the general, and Vargas says that he is talking about him. He was able to gather all these people, so he is the general there. R says that people only came because of Vargas, so Vargas must be the general. For him, the people who are close to him are very important. R decided to leave his native village to also protect his friends. The decision to go to the neighboring village was the best. R says that they will set up camp there. Between Baruka and the capital Fontaine there is a river. R notes that the Fontaine families will have to cross that section before reaching the village of Baruka. Because of the turbulent water, it can only be crossed in a few places. R says it's time to prepare the camp and shouts for everyone to level the ground because he is going to build platforms. It became a village of small houses. There are more than 100 people there, but that should be enough to accommodate everyone. The next step is to build defensive walls. People use this power to create walls. It is much easier when everyone can use this magic without having to learn it. When R uses the power of the naming ritual, all information about magic from his brain is transmitted to others. But there are people who cannot create a wall. Besides not being able to do this, they are also unable to process the information. R notices that the same thing happened with the settlement near the road. When he looks closely, he sees that the people have little mana. Creating a wall and a road consumes significantly more mana than other spells, and when R tried to use a spell beyond his own mana reserves, he also failed due to incorrect information processing. Ars does not know whether this is a limitation of the receiver or his magical circle, but people can only master the magic that their mana can withstand. Now the boy wants to check if his ability to use spells changes when he gains mana. Grant says he has something to show the boy. He made a specially designed bulletproof vest for him. The work turned out great, even though it was done at the last minute. After the fight with Vargas, Ars realized that it is very risky to be on the front line without proper equipment. Vargas waves his sword and says that the sword is too shiny for his taste, but he will not decide what to use on the battlefield. Ars gave stronger swords to those close to him because they understand his request and can give instructions to others in the village. Ars built a strong base and solved the equipment problem. Only one thing remained. Our people are shocked. Try saying that the enemies have 500 people. Baruka has about 50 people in total, and it is alarming that they face an enemy 10 times larger. 500 enemy soldiers are shocking. Grant notes that the very fact that our people built that base and brought all those people there exceeded the Fontana family's expectations. Still, the difference in numbers is very large, and they will not be able to hold the line without reinforcements. R says that they need to engage in open battle. Vargas agrees, because if they break through the defense, very few people will remain. The Fontana family thinks they are just stubborn farmers, but in reality this is a group that knows how to use magic. If they manage to wound the enemy so that he decides to advance, they will have a chance to win. They will have only one chance, and must set up an ambush. He used these terms earlier in video games, but now they seem too difficult for use in real life. Valkyrie approaches the boy and bites him. It seems she is trying to revive her friend. Ars says he relies on her, and they plan to stay close until they gain freedom. The boy is ready for anything for the sake of one goal. The farmers stand before the enemies. As befits the nobility, they have a lot of metal weapons, so according to the boy's plan, they have a significant advantage. The number of troops corresponds to what the merchant predicted. The farmers see that someone is approaching and draw attention. This is a man on a Valkyrie without horns. Then the man begins to shout to all the inhabitants of the village of Baruka. He says that Ars has committed a crime. He acts contrary to the orders of the nobility and wounded a tax collector. Since they are defenders of that land, they cannot be friendly. The residents of Baruka should not bear the burden of sin. Ars Hector asks if the boy will just listen silently. The man shouts that if everyone surrenders and lays down their weapons on the ground, they will be able to return to their villages and live normally. Hector says that the villagers will eventually give in if they continue to listen to this, and it will end very badly. It's time to start the speech before the battle. R notices that the battle has already begun. He is not sure if he can deliver a speech that will raise the group's fighting spirit and at the same time weaken the enemy. But he knows a way to calm everyone in that space. The voice is the sound created by the vocal cords. By focusing mana on the vocal cords to amplify their vibration, he can produce a loud and clear voice. Ars says that the Fountain family wrote a document stating that the boy is the owner of Baruka's land. But when they noticed that the city was developing, they decided to take it away from the people. They want to steal the land and everything on it from them. They even want to steal the residents of Baruka. Ars decides to cover his voice with mana and send strength into the hearts of the present citizens. They must protect their property by their own means, and Baruka's resistance will not break before the tyranny of the nobility. They will no longer allow the nobility to destroy people with devilish acts just because they feel like it. They are no longer going to live as puppets, so the time for battle has come. It's time for them to regain their freedom. The enemies are shocked that the peasants are really coming at them. Their captain tells them to hold the line and maintain control. R quickly flies on his Valkyrie. The man starts to walk, and R shouts for him not to run away. The guy is not crazy. Then he tells them not to interrupt him. With one blow, he knocks several men off their feet. Kolgakem fought so well on horseback that he decided to make a handle to use it as a weapon. Most importantly, he used physical charm, and it helps a lot. Despite everything, he probably also became stronger. Ars spins the staff in the air and tells them to step back if they don't want to fly far. The main hero fully took advantage of that moment and moved forward in time, not giving the enemy a chance to prepare. Moreover, the sight of a child fighting adults threw them off balance, so he didn't have to face those who were brought there by force. The only person R wants to fight in that battle is the commander of the Hornless Valkyrie, but someone from our side calls and asks him to stop. He goes too far on his own. Even on horseback, he is too far from his army. Thanks to better physical training and stone throwing, the soldiers are much better than the enemies. Even he, when he was a child, managed to increase his strength. This probably happened because he absorbed mana from the air since childhood. But others just used the mana they already had, so it must be weaker. However, it seems that there is a direct connection between the power and quality of mana. Perhaps that is why few manage to get along with him. R calls Beto and Vargas. Then he tells his father and Matic to lead the others. They want to reach the armed army concentrated in the middle. Ars, Beto, and Vargas are pillars of Baruch's army, and this armed group is likely a support of that enemy army. Despite this, Ars believes that the attack he knows will not harm them. Moreover, those soldiers have much more mana than others. They prepare by holding shields in front of them. His messages indicate that they are trying to stop him, so he is going to invade. But as soon as he strikes the soldiers' shields, his staff slipped from his hand. Arskid is nervous because he is very vulnerable, so he draws his sword. Several soldiers fell hard to the ground, and others shout at them not to lose to some child. R notices that they did not fly far, but are much weaker than he thought. They have excellent equipment and a lot of mana, but the quality of mana remains the same. So Ars's viscous mana is much better. It seems the thickness of mana also significantly affects strength. The main hero shouts to Vargas that it will be easy if each of them destroys 10 soldiers. But the young man is in despair. While Beto complains about our decisions, someone draws a sword. It seems the enemy general underestimated the boy. Therefore, he tries to catch Ars by surprise, but the boy knows how to defend himself. The man says that the boy's rebellion ends there. The man says that they haven't seen each other for a long time, and asks if we are all right. He was still very young when they met, so our child probably doesn't remember this. He is the head of the Fontana family, which rules those lands, Raymond. Our side is outraged that this is the leader of that army. He ordered the Valkyrie's horns to be cut off, so ours cannot forget. Moreover, he himself gave ours the right to that land. Now the same man is trying to take everything from them. A representative of the Fontana family, Raymond. The tax collector's message even had his name. They ask how he has the courage to take from those who have nothing. Beto shouts to his brother to calm down and look around. The army rises again. It seems Raymond appeared just to briefly distract ours. The main character notes that he wasted the moment he managed to snatch for himself. All enemy soldiers point at them with their fingers. They use spells. Each noble family receives a unique magical power. Even their power rests only on the magic they possess. No matter how strong a person is, they cannot fight alone. Thanks to this, the nobles can transfer part of their magic to those who go into battle. This is called the naming ceremony. But magic is dangerous, and giving it to a large number of people is risky. In fact, they have already experienced betrayal. Simply put, there are conditions under which someone can receive magic. The first step: appear in battle several times, collect items, and listen to the nobility. The second stage is to start working as a knight and gain approval. If you are a bad mage or cannot use magic on the battlefield, your surname will be taken away, and you will be expelled from your native family. Ars in Baruka avoided this system. Now he will have to deal with it. The magical power of the Fontana family. Raymond demands that they start all attacks. Several ice spears fly towards the three. They are surrounded, and it is impossible to defend against all at once. Vargas is serious. Now it's time to believe that the other will help repel the attacks, using his mana and physical charm. We should have enough opportunities to stop those attacks. He also adds Mona to his eyes. Now everything seems to move in slow motion. Using mana on 2 different things is difficult, but he will manage. Launching ice should work the same way as launching stones. Ars notes that probably Vargas was able to repel his attack because he had already fought those soldiers. Vargas hits the chest. R begins to worry. He asks if the young man is okay. Although he is strong and has a resilient body and sword, he is not protected from damage. If Vargas surrenders now, Beto and the Ars will be caught because of him. Perhaps that is why the man risks his own body. Ars is very satisfied with Vargas's performance. Meanwhile, Beto fiercely fights the enemies and quietly screams. Earlier, when Raymond tore the horns off the Valkyries, ours could do nothing. But now he has strength. The soldiers are beginning to tire. The main hero also has loyal comrades. He is no longer the same as before, and they will gain their freedom. Finally, the attack stops. Beto says that they worked well. When Beto looks around, he sees that his Valkyrie is wounded. He climbs down from the creature, enraged. Then he attacks the enemy and asks how they managed to wound his comrade. R calls for Vargas to cover Beto. Although the young man is quite strong, he cannot fight against an entire army alone. Beto throws all his fury at the enemy. He strikes one of the soldiers with a sword, and the soldier deflects it. However, Beto's strength is enough to break the soldier's weapon. We are impressed by this. He never noticed his brother's strength because he only compared him to other children in the village. He knows that those soldiers have weak mana, and it's good that Beto can handle them. His brother amazes everyone with his crazy strength, and Vargas covers him. It seems they do not need his help. Thanks to Beto distracting attention, there are very few knights in front of them. It's time for us to put an end to this. Raymond Mock says it's strange that we have magical weapons. He asks how the guy did it, but the main character says it's none of his business. It seems Raymond still considers himself the winner. The man replies that he won't lose concentration because of those surprises. He was just complaining that obviously he can no longer ask our side to retreat. Raymond's mana is much stronger than the mana of his knights. Ars did not consider Raymond a commander who shows the knights what to do. Moreover, his sword looks very dangerous. It definitely has much more mana than the sword Ars is holding. Raymond says it's a pity, but now the guy has to leave this world. The Valkyrie advances. R only needs one strike. He plans to attack Raymond with all his mana. R manages to strike, but he was caught off guard because Raymond's sword turns into ice. The man says he will show the boy the power of the spiritual ice sword. The sword is restored by ice, so ours is in a worse position. No matter how many times he breaks Raymond's sword, the sword simply restores itself. The man strikes the Valkyrie. Then our side turns out to be unprepared, due to Raymond's brutal attack. The boy gets tired and uses up mana, while Raymond just keeps advancing on him. Ours falls to the ground. So obviously there are very influential people in that world. Raymond advances towards ours. He raised the sword over the Valkyrie. The main character has no chance to escape. Then he attacks Raymond. The Valkyrie is scared because she was hit in the paw. Raymond's sword falls to the ground, and he also falls along with the Valkyrie. Now both fight on equal terms, although he is much calmer than ours. If the main hero misses this opportunity, he does not know if there will be another chance. This is the end of everything. R lowers the sword on Raymond, but one of his knights manages to stop him. The knights tell Raymond to leave from there. The main hero fights with them, shouting for them to get out of his way. However, they are very coordinated. If he really wants to survive those nights, he needs much more strength than he has. Ars knocks, one of them fell to the ground. As expected, the knights are really strong. The main hero is gasping for breath, yet he does not lower his sword. He can still handle this by redistributing mana. In time, everyone will suffer defeat, and ours has also run out. Everything seems too difficult, but he is not finished yet. It is not yet time to lower vigilance because Raymond has appeared. They begin a sword fight. The man says that we seem to have almost no strength left, so this will be enough to stop his futile resistance. R says that actually Raymond should yield at that moment. Suddenly the ground begins to tremble. Raymond is shocked by what is happening. R says that he has fallen into his trap. Tryon asks everyone to listen carefully and says that they just need to follow Hugh. Then everyone moves forward. This will be incredible. The Rs knew that a simple sudden attack would not be enough. For this, he lacked people, but he had an ace up his sleeve. An incredible group of Valkyries moves towards Raymond, and the man can hardly believe this is happening. R orders all the Valkyries to act. Then they begin to use magic from their horns. Everyone immediately starts shooting at the enemies. The soldiers can hardly believe that those creatures are magical. The round horses begin to move even further, destroying everything. People are scared because the Valkyries use the same magic as Baruch. Raymond cannot believe that this is true. He then doubts whether the Rs really think he will agree to lose in such a ridiculous way. That was exactly what the Rs needed. Then he strikes Raymond with a sword. He finished that battle. This is the end for Raymond. Anyone can say that it was their decisive victory. Members of the R family defeated a representative of the Fontana family, so that the soldiers retreated. The main hero loudly says that Baruka is now free and he wants to hear the victory cry of his comrades. Arceus's allies begin to celebrate. The enemies flee. The real Valkyrie comes to talk to the Rs. He says that he is fine and thanks her for her concern. In the end, Baruka won the battle. Tryon was very scared. He asks if Rs knows what else shocked him. Use of physical enchantment during the gallop of the top Valkyrie. The only ones who can ride on Valkyries are Beto and Rs. The merchant asks what the guy will do next. He knows that the fight with the Fontana family is not over yet. Now our guy just wants to rest because he knows that Fontana's armament is stronger than theirs. They gathered all the weapons left on the battlefield. About 200 of them switched to the side of Baruka or Linda, which gave them an advantage in the war. But the main factor in their victory was information. Vargas's approach seeks to interact with our approach. The guy asks if they are ready to talk, and Vargas confirms. They fought side by side when they were still ordinary people. R managed to capture several people. As prisoners of war, they may have valuable information. It is known that Fontana has over 5,000 soldiers, and it will not be an achievement if they fail to handle 2 random villages. They do not want to fight, but they need to show their strength to appear strong enough so that opponents do not dare to risk a battle. And so ours decided that a castle should be built there. They are not only good for defense, but also serve as a symbol of power. In that world, science is weak, possibly due to magic. Despite this, all castles have a simple structure. Since there is a river there, a moat can be made. Grand was very pleased and said that the moat is a wonderful idea, but their walls are not strong enough for a castle. For it to be a castle wall, it is necessary to make stairs by which a person can climb to the top, and an observation tower. As soon as they build the tower, they will be able to copy others while preserving memory. After this, it is worth building roads so that they can receive supplies from the villages. They must also build a wall in the village of Linda, and leave a Valkyrie in each tower to stay informed about events. The first step is to organize people into teams according to their level of magic. Grant is delighted because he is going to build a castle. The man wants to make that castle so incredible that even the nobility would be impressed. The reconstruction was completed, and the tower is now 30 meters high. Around the walls outside there is a moat. For the village of Linda, walls and watchtowers were also built, besides the road that connects the villages. The first step was to deal with what was outside the castle. Bidu says that more people want to join them. Thanks to the road, it is possible to get from the castle to the villages in 1 day, so more people joined. Bito also has a message for our people. Father Paulo wants to see him. R returns to Baruka after some time away. He did not want to see the priest at all. The man greets the young man and says he sees that the boy is engaged in various affairs. When he was gone, Ars asks what the priest is talking about. Then the man says that the boy makes him nervous. Does the priest mean the naming ceremony, or is he talking about baptism? Paulo confirms that he used magic to name many people without the church's permission, and now he has gone too far. So he needs to find out the truth about this magic. Only those who can control their own mana can use magic. They are called mages, and they are rare. Since ancient times, it has been told that one mage learned to use power simply with words, and that magic became known as a spell, and people who use spells were called sorcerers. Eventually, those who invented naming appeared, which allowed even ordinary people to use magic. They are called sorcerers. The sorcerer said that the ability to name was given to him by the gods. This is the principle of the Holy Church to which Paulo belongs. However, the wizard had a different goal. He used his power to spread magic away from the light of the church and invoked everyday magic, which cannot be aggressive and does not endanger anyone. A name is essentially a parental bond that establishes a magical hierarchy, through which children can use their parents' spells, and parents receive a small portion of the child's mana. Arya suspects that this is why her mana grows so much. Paulo says that this is a secret technique that Ars used without permission, and now the boy is smart enough to know how the church feels about it. The main character begins to worry and thinks that his life is over. Then he calls Paulo to wait a minute and says that the ritual he performed was to initiate them as knights. This means that he is doing it not just without permission. Other people are involved here, and if so, Paulo might regret it. Then the priest says that the church always mediates in the ceremony of ennoblement. The nobility can pave the way for mana only with the help of the church. If there were no church, no one could prevent the nobles from coming out and destroying everything. They gain not only more strength than soldiers, but nobles can also acquire incredible mana. Power is dangerous if not used wisely. On the other hand, the church does not approve when people do not receive what they have earned. Ars is outraged that Paulo is profiting from this. Paulo says that they do not take money, but only accept what God sends, with gratitude. This is how the church maintains calm. It means that we not only oppose the church, but also cause it economic harm. R thinks about how Mona transitions from a child to her father, and these parents have other parents. Ars asks if Paulo's mana is growing. The man says so because he called him Ars. Paulo says that he thought it was because of the quality of Ars's mana, but he cannot explain it himself. The main character once called the Valkyrie, but all those born after that were able to use his magic. This only means that all Valkyries are somehow connected to them. This means that part of the Valkyrie's mana passes through him to Father Paulo. The boy suspects that this is a pyramid scheme. Paolo says that thanks to the increase in mana, he was promoted to bishop, and now he manages not only the church but the entire region. There is a great gap between bishops and priests, so Paolo lives much more comfortably, and Ars asks who gave him this promotion, and the man says that no one did. He suddenly learned a new spell and realized that he was promoted. He can now use healing magic. R noticed that this is similar to people he called who cannot use certain spells. People cannot use those spells because they do not know they exist. But those who have enough mana suddenly know this spell. It should be a feeling that God himself gave that great power. Paolo says that now he will achieve what he wanted. Why didn't the boy entrust him with his future? They need to observe our current situation. He led the peasants to an uprising, attacked a neighboring village, killed a representative of the Fontana family, captured 6 knights, and illegally seized land. R says that Paolo only does bad deeds. The bishop adds that he also stole a church secret during the naming ritual, and spread aggressive magic. R has just declared war against the Fontana family, but he has no reasons for the naming ceremony. The boy suggests resolving this by joining the church, but Paolo says he was already expelled because he aggressively used magic. MC asks if the priest means that he has no options left, and Paolo says that then the boy's biggest problem was a dispute with the church. Now Paolo needs to know what he will say to them next. He is ready to say that he was the one who named the village Baruka. Thus Ars would not have bypassed him to do this, and they would have been able to continue working. The main character asks why the priest acted that way, and Paolo says he will explain what it means. He rose in rank thanks to the mana that Ars has, and there is a high probability that he will get into trouble if the boy dies. Moreover, Ars used the naming ceremony to strengthen his own power, and he would very much like it to continue happening unnoticed. Paolo is ready to help Ars in any way he can, including some inaccuracies and reports about events in the church. Still, they cannot pretend that nothing is happening. Our actions are already known, and the boy will soon have to deal with it. But in this situation, who has to pay them the money? The boy notices that no one can help him. During the naming ceremony, the nobility demands a fee. If he had only asked Bishop Paolo to name the village, the story would not make sense, because he would not have received a reward. Therefore, the question arises of how much he will have to pay. Then Paolo counts on paper and shows the amount, from which the boy is shocked, because he has been saving this money all his life. The man doubts whether the boy will be able to pay. For most people, such an amount is unattainable. But Ars does not want to spend his entire fortune just to resolve a dispute with the church. He asks if Paolo should negotiate with the Fontana family, and the man agrees that the Fontana family still needs to be dealt with. Paolo asks us to imagine ourselves as members of the Fontana family and try to understand what is most important to them right now. The boy asks if it is about him, and Paolo says that probably the boy has not understood anything yet. They want to know where Baraka and his army got this power, because few can use magic so naturally. Even fewer people can transfer this power to others. They will probably think that another noble family started the rebellion by giving peasants money and power. Paolo will say that such a nobleman does not exist. The citizens themselves decided to do it. He also plans to say that he appointed Baraka's farmers. Are there any questions about whether this will be dangerous for him and what he will do? Paolo says that the baptism of executive art is already sufficient. Moreover, after the promotion, he became a bishop responsible for all churches in the Fontana territory. Therefore, he will probably be able to settle matters with the Fontana family. Of course, he will have to do the work on the ground, and without our donation, it would be difficult. The boy says that money rules the world, and that Barukas' fate is in the hands of the priest. Meanwhile, in the city, people are talking about Paolo becoming the new bishop. Moreover, he is responsible for Baruch's church and appointed ours. The boy says he never thought the bishop would cover for him. This shows how important RS is. Even the church is ready to take risks for him. While Ars organizes the squad he is called, the bishop arrives by carriage, worried because he has done everything he was supposed to do regarding the Fontana family. As expected, the deal must be directly sealed by both parties. So they need to go to the palace where they were gathering. This will be an informal conversation on neutral territory for both sides. For this, Ars chose one of his towers, which stood in the middle of the road, and there was no one around it. The boy climbed all the stairs and opens the door. Another says that he must be ours. He is somehow impressed that this is just a child. The main character is outraged by the boy's mockery, and asks who he is. He stands up and says that he is Carlos Fontana. Currently, he is the one who leads the Fontana family. Our representative is outraged that Paolo did not tell him this, and Carlos Fontana says that the bishop has already told him everything. He suggests ignoring that small rebellion and stopping the fights, but Ars does not want to agree so easily. He says that he has his own demands. Carlos Fontana smiles. He not only does not bow before the aristocrat, but also demands things. Adding to our article, Carlos Fontana says that this is exactly how the leader of the uprising should be, and proposes such conditions. R takes the contract to look at it. Carlos Fontana says he does not mind leaving the Baruco land to us if he stops that fight. It says there that one of ours must serve the Fontana family, but in return receives the title of knight, and this is quite advantageous. The boy doubts whether Carlos Fontana intends to keep that promise. The man says that a few more details need to be resolved, but this is official. If he did something so terrible, his subordinates would leave him. R doubts whether Carlos Fontana knows that he himself killed his representative, and whether it does not seem strange to him that he wants to make him a subordinate. Then Carlos Fontana says that he is actually very grateful for how everything is happening. He starts laughing and says that ours did a great job killing Raymond. Apparently, our man knows what he is talking about. He was still a child, but the experience of war is hard to forget. It was 3 years ago. His father, the former head of the family, died and he inherited his position. To inherit the throne, people did not hold back, and most were ready to kill the leader. Carlos Fontana was still a child and became lord. And to govern until he came of age, a man from the Barbaros family, who served as a knight, was chosen. He admits that Raymond protected him well until he came of age. But during his tenure, he witnessed the death of an excellent soldier from the family. The position of representative was initially given to knights from families, but he appropriated it for himself. Raymond was responsible for the gift for the Valkyrie, which was delivered by ours. This also means that he organized the contracts of the Fontana family. Carlos Fontana agrees, and says that that minor mistake became an opportunity to destroy him. And the narrator notes that Raymond was also responsible for the mistake with the land transfer to the boy. Carlos Fontana says he did not expect that ours would kill Raymond. This means that now he controls the Fontana family. The boy says that it is not so simple, and he is working hard to strengthen the power of various forces in Fontana after Raymond's fall. Carlos Fontana points to ours. He says that Raymond's family and his subordinates live peacefully, but although obedient, they will most likely rise up sooner or later. Ours will put an end to this. Carlos Fontana may be the head of the family, but he has little support. However, he will be able to stop him if he has the power of the Baruch family. R treated Carlos Fontana as an equal and without fear. For him, the guy does not have a farmer's mindset. It seems R has something he wants to protect. Therefore, the guy will probably not back down. Carlos Fontana can only offer the guy something valuable, the life of the Baruch people and the health that the guy was able to gain. In addition, he will gain freedom. Carlos Fontana decided to ensure this. In return, ours must become his sword. His position is not strong, but he remains a lord, and we are grateful that Carlos Fontana does not change it. He is ready to accept this to maintain good relations with Paulo. Then the guy says he has to add a few conditions. Their meeting lasted until night. The priest puts a sheet of paper on the table. This is the document they agreed upon. And now Paulo wants to find out if both agree. Carlos Fontana and R say yes. Paulo asks ours to step forward. He asks if the guy promises to serve and support Carlos Fontana. The host says yes. Next, the priest asked Carlos Fontana to come forward. He asks if the young man promises to make our knight his own, to help each other fight the enemies. He says yes. Then Ars Nils appeared before Carlos Fontana at the appointed meeting. The priest at that moment uses his power, and Carlos Fontana tells Ars Baruchi that he has now become his knight. The boy is known as Ars von Baruca. After signing the contract with one man, Carlos Fontana significantly strengthened and now better controls his territory, which should help pressure the Raimo faction. He gained some new abilities, such as the skill to control ice. Now he can use the magic of the Fontana family. Now that everything is decided, our hero can finally return to his ordinary life. Grant asks if the boy wants to do something with his land. The boy not only managed Baruca and Linda, but also an entire castle north of the river. At first, Carlos Fontana wanted to manage only Baruca, but after a long dispute about not leaving Vargas or the castle, Carlos Fontana gave in. R tells Grant that he wants that man to do something, and that is the most important thing at that moment. Then he says he needs to gather money because he has nothing to realize the boy's fantasies. He has full right to govern and set taxes and decisions, but that entails responsibilities. Collecting taxes, he must pay the Fontana family. Moreover, if they ask for it, the boy must give it, but at that moment we don't even have money to pay for the food of his citizens. R must show his dedication to the territory he so hard won. He needs to quickly come up with a way to earn money. He organizes internal administration. The girl closes the book. She is sad. The maid asks what is wrong with Lelina. The girl smiles and says that it is a trifle. Then she asks the maid to bring the next book she will read. Raymond, who consolidated and defended his territory since she was young, died during the uprising. He was always very talented, and she believes that Carlos Fontana will be able to manage his territory well. Despite this, Raymond's powerful knights will find the culprit and do not feel calm because of Carlos Fontana's inexperience. Although he is smart, he needs to know how to conduct politics. The girl understands that she also needs to prepare for what will come. Ars says that he will name those responsible for the kingdom of Baruka. Merchant Trian Baruka will help them with internal affairs because he can read, write, and count. Beto and Vargas will become captains. They need money to create an army, so first they need to train the people who are already here. Father R will be responsible for security. He will implement a simple policy so that people live peacefully. Thus, one of ours will be able to ask his father to control those who use magic in peacetime. Matic and the heads of 2 annexed villages will be his judges. There is no clearly established law there, but people will probably listen to them. MC wants those 3 to make decisions on his behalf. Meanwhile, Grandmus continues to be a builder, but since he is not very good at organizing, we need to find someone to look after him. Meanwhile, ours plan to hire people to entertain the rest of the population. When they were laying roads in the castle, those people not only followed his orders but also suggested better options than his initial idea. This means that even if they cannot read, they are still smart. The guy wants them to work like never before for the kingdom of Baruka. This is how the administration of the Baruki territory began. The merchant complains and says that our product is a real monster. First thing, the guy took all his valuable money. After he spent money on the church and had nothing left, he asked Trion to make an investment, and Bishop Paulo was surprised that he had saved so much. This means that if these 2 do business together, others will run away like bandits. Ars asks Triana to consider that money as payment for the good land he received, and the man agrees that it is a good donation for his leader. He notices that the guy has good skills but worries whether everything will really be fine with him because he became a nobleman out of nowhere. R established relations with Carlos Fontana, but his subordinates and other nobles do not like him. The guy could easily be mobilized and sacrificed in the middle of the battlefield. Many told Carlos Fontana that he should return the territory. Simply making his land fertile will not work. He needs to make the kingdom of Baruka the strongest in the region. For this, the first step is to conduct operations to gather the money he needs. The guy tells them to open the market. Try to complain and say that no one in their right mind would go so far to buy a few things. Nobles are constantly dealing with neighbors, so traveling somewhere is quite difficult. In every territory, you have to pay for passage, and it is also hard to negotiate with guilds. These guilds charge excessive fees for everything, from goods to the place of sale. If you decide to conduct business without the guild, you may be arrested. R asks if this does not interfere with the flow of money and the functioning of the market. He suggests creating a free market where people could enter and negotiate. The merchant says it is still difficult because to get there, they will have to pay duties in all the lands they leave and enter. Yet our people want to create a city and a system where traders will trade on their own terms. The first step is to make a simple passage from there to the city of Fontana. It already has some kind of bridge, but it can be improved, and a road made. The construction of the bridge was already part of the agreement. Therefore, they will solve 2 matters simultaneously. Beto doubts whether the peace agreement mentioned the construction of that road for traders. The boy says that originally it was actually about armies. If they feel any threat, they will be able to contact Baruka. The boy says that another term is to keep soldiers on the other side of the river. Negotiating about that castle north of the river with Carlos Fontana was the most difficult. Eventually, he agreed. However, he did not want to have bad relations with Carlos Fontana. He wants to make that castle north of the river a city that will connect Fontana and Baruka. Our people ordered the farm owners to use magic to improve their farms, while others built roads. After a few days, the road shortened the travel time between Baruka and Fontana. Ars thanks everyone when they finish and says they worked well. Now roads are no longer being built, and people begin to think about how to earn money. They have no farms and do not know where to start. R notes that part of a ruler's duties is to provide food for their population. A population that has means to survive commits fewer crimes. The Lord must also maintain peace. R builds a residential complex in the village of Baruka. People are impressed. A boy says that anyone can live there. Ars cleared some land behind the wall and built several small houses. The guy says that he even prepared work for them so they could earn money themselves. The work consists of only 2 things. First, manufacturing of ultra-strong bricks. The production of those super-hard bricks will be Baruch's specialty. The second thing is the growth of magic mushrooms. The most important thing in this is to obtain a source of mana. If they do it right, they will gather a considerable harvest and enjoy the mushrooms for a long time. Everyone is amazed by what Ars can do. At first, R wanted to keep the secret about the magic mushroom to himself. His profits would decrease, but in the long run it would be better. It is important to do everything so that they have a better chance of surviving during the war. If he accumulates enough mana, he will be able to use magic without worries. This is how Baruka got her signature dishes. Now we need to negotiate with the farmers. The first step is to inspect the plot. Beto is puzzled, and the boy explains that it is necessary to find out the area of the land and how much harvest can be gathered from it. Beto says he does not want to do this because he prefers training his little soldiers. Ars agrees that this is not his style. Thanks to leveling and improving the land, there is a high probability of a much larger harvest this year. This means he will be able to collect a large amount of taxes. The idea of the census is to find out how much product each plot of land yields, and based on this he can estimate the size of the taxes. If he raises taxes immediately in the first year, he will be considered a bad governor. Ars thinks about how to measure the area of that land because those people do not have measuring tools. The boy decides to measure it by counting how many times the land leveling force was used. Both leveling and soil improvement can only be applied in squares with sides of 10 meters. This way anyone can perform the analysis even without instruments. Ars says he will do this and consider that 1 acre of Barukas land corresponds to 1 soil leveling. Earlier when they fought with Raymond, Carl stood up, cried, and shouted that it was all his fault. He said that both the Valkyrie's injury and the boys were his fault. He and his mother persistently reminded him that it was not so. Since then, the boy has been trying to prove that he can be useful. Ars says that they also need to choose a unit of length. The host says that the meter will be defined as the length of a side when leveling the ground, and if the meter is divided into 100 parts, each part will be called a centimeter. Now that they have agreed on the length, it has become easier to measure volume and height. A liter of water weighs a kilogram, and they can establish that water evaporates at 100 degrees Celsius. R did not expect everyone to understand this immediately, so he prepared materials for them and asked Carl to distribute them to everyone. R asks if Carl understood everything that R said. Then he says that he is counting on the little boy. The Baruch community began to use the system of measurements that we are accustomed to. They began to analyze the land according to what we were taught, but he did not have paper. They need paper to write down everything they discover. Despite this, paper is very expensive, and we cannot afford to spend money right now. He remembers that there are many trees in the forest, and that paper is made from them. So he tried to make paper using magic. However, he experienced several failures. Note that he told our people that it is impossible to make paper directly from the plant. Nevertheless, the main character does not give up after several failures, and will try boiling at high temperatures and adding other ingredients to test a different pulp. For this work, he uses wood from the forest, recovery mana, and roots. The first step is to crush the wood by breaking it. Then all that remains is to boil it. He found that boiling in the mana potion better releases the fibers. After that, all that remains is to mix the fibers with the pulp and boil again. We will take yams that grow in the forest and make pulp from them. Next, the mixture is extracted and placed between pieces of cloth under a weight, so that the cloth absorbs all the water, and the pressure helps to squeeze the paper. After this, he theoretically has a good piece of paper. On that sheet, lines can even be written well. Now it is possible to make records about that land. Tryon is shocked and says he wants to buy those papers from the boy. The host teases, saying that he said it was simply impossible. Try to apologize, and says that he never imagined the boy could do something so incredible. Yar asks if he plans to use it or sell it, and the man replies both options. A thin and interesting sheet is perfect for records and sales. Although it is very thin, it writes well on it, unlike others he has seen. The seller says he is sure it will sell anywhere. R says that if the man wants to go that far, paper production needs to be increased and a special group allocated for this. It is unpleasant that the only thing he can do for families who lost someone in battle is to pay them money, and they don't even look him in the eye. Paper production will be more suitable than windows and farms. Thus began the mass production of paper from the workshop for people. We decided to hire widows for the team of specialists. The paper contains mana, which is not cheap, but it sells very well in the cities. Despite this, the widows still do not look them in the eye. But now the family is grateful. A little boy who lost his father looks at our hero and gestures to him. The hero was able to ease the burden carried by these families after losing their breadwinners. R says that the next step will be equipping the Valkyries. Grand was very happy with this idea and eagerly began making new equipment. Although the armor is cool, Ars decided to produce saddles and stirrups, and he asked Grant to draw a diagram for him. The man asks if Ars can ride without that equipment, and the boy answers yes. However, he noticed how important it is to have a saddle during a horse battle with Raymond. He lost that battle and was thrown off the Valkyrie. If he had a saddle with stirrups, he would have better support for his feet. So thanks to strengthening the body, he could win that battle. Saddles are easy to make, so people like him and Beto should be able to do it. Our great Asif wants to create cavalry. In battle, speed gives a great advantage. Cavalry will likely improve its military effectiveness. Those Valkyriasi with horns can help even without a rider, and those without horns must serve in battle like horses. The boy says he wants something that will ease the Valkyries' transition to another city. And Grant says he will do it. They made horseshoes. The speed of the Valkyries varies significantly when they go through the forest and when they go on the road, because on the road they carry people as cargo, so they need footwear that can withstand such a load. R is fascinated by the sight of the horseshoe. The Valkyrie is also fascinated. Over time, R's noticed something about those animals. There is a difference between the Valkyries he created and those that hatched from the eggs of other Valkyries. Although one is bigger than the other, their horn and magical power are the same. This shows that by making only one horseshoe model, you can shoot at all of them. Ours tried all kinds of horseshoes, until the Valkyrie was happy. After several unsuccessful attempts, they finally selected the perfect equipment for that creature. R notes that there is still much work to do, and he is already exhausted. In our previous life, we could plant and eat many different plants all year round, but in that world, they eat only during the harvest. R says that even if you improve the soil, it won't help. Although Baruka has a warehouse, they do nothing with the roots, and they spoil. But this will end that day. Thanks to the new composition, they will be able to store products for a long time. Beto says that the cube looks more like a giant tofu, and R gets indignant and says that it is a special building with walls almost 3 times thicker. Neither light nor air gets in there. R starts using magic. He throws ice balls in all directions, and Beta asks if everything is okay. Grant asks if the boy should rest a little, and R says that for this a lot of ice is needed and those two should help him fill the space. Then they manage to line the warehouse with ice. The next step is to cover the ice with sawdust so it doesn't melt quickly. At that moment, they have a full freezer. Beto says that it is very cold there. The boy knew that before the advent of electricity, people used iceboxes as freezers. Maybe it is worth doing this for families. Those who have too little electricity to make ice can buy it, and then they will be able to store not only vegetables, but also meat leftovers. This will definitely improve the current situation. Grant asks Beto why they are not building a castle there, and the boy is confused. The man says that R spends most days in Baruka, not in the castle north of the river. The boy says he likes working that way. Only Carlos Fontana is in that castle with the smallest number of soldiers specified in the peace treaty. Grant wonders why they are not building another castle there. Castles are an important way to show power, the boy agrees, but thinks that Grant is just trying to get a chance to build something else. R notes that they have just come out of a difficult situation, and building a castle could create new intrigues, but granting grants makes the transition to the governor position easier. Everyone in the last battle saw us as a force, but those who were not present do not know. Some will see a problem in paying taxes to a child, and R's note that Grant is offering him to demonstrate power. The man agrees and says that the castle will be much more splendid than the other. Since it is not urgent, we plan to work gradually. The most impressive in Baruka is the castle north of the river, but as Grant said, the boy is never there. A large castle there will help people know who rules Baruka. R is still determined to open an open market, but he is not sure if merchants will go there. Since he can be called to battle at any moment, he should not focus solely on managing the land. His goal is to increase strength. To do this, he needs people to move to the kingdom. Ars tells Grem that one castle is not enough. He wants the castle in the middle to become the heart of the city of Baruka. So let's make a city around the castle. The boy noticed that the land surrounded by walls probably kept other people away. If he had built a city without walls in a place where people would want to live, there would probably be more people there. If more people move there, merchants will appear and soon this city will become ideal for business. To protect their treasures and homes, people will have no problem fighting on his side. Now that he has become the ruler, calling people to live there brings him only advantages. The villages of Baruka and Linda, together with the castle in the north, form the kingdom of Baruka. The first step is to improve the lands between the central and outer walls. In the south, where Beto and Grand live and where Trian has a shop, there will be a free market where people will be allowed to open their own stores, and there will also be a freezer there. But there is still a lot of empty space. So ours will divide what remains of the land in the south and west, and will sell plots to everyone who wants to live there. Now they only have to install doors and windows and everything will be ready. Unlike the southern part, the northern part adjoins the forest, where firewood can be collected, so lumberjacks and charcoal producers will settle there. Since trees are needed for the production of paper and magical mushrooms, these people must also stay there. The lands in the north are divided into plots for growing food for the Valkyries. The boy plans to eventually give this territory to all his soldiers. He is not yet ready to have an army, but if the gates are left accessible to people, it will be easier for them to move when the time comes. Currently, his duty is to maintain peace, and the boy thinks it would be good to create a prison to hold those who need to be detained. It would also be important to create a kind of court where people could consider crimes, and Eris is considering whether to judge more serious crimes in the castle itself and leave minor ones to the population. He decides to build these super strong brick structures between the two walls. Thus Eris continued to develop the land, focusing on building the city in the south. The merchant is impressed by what he sees and says that it is incredible and he has never seen such a city. Try asking if Eris made every effort to make this happen, and he answered yes. The boy asks if this city has become bigger than Fontana. The whole city is divided into districts. Everything here is very well organized and there are typical houses. The divider between the road, which separates the southern and eastern sides, was very well planned, and the houses have arches and even glass windows. Moreover, the guy made everything from super durable bricks, high-quality material, and Eris notes that he used memory preservation only in his own house to do this. Eris asks Tryon if he thinks this will surprise people from other cities, and Tryon says that anyone would be surprised. Then the man asks Eris to help him get down from there because he is afraid. The guy needs to improve the outer wall. It fully withstands large wild boars, but it also has to protect against human attacks. The boy would like to make it entirely from ultra-strong bricks, but he cannot turn this into a single spell, so the work becomes inefficient. In the castle in the north, 4 towers were enough, but for that wall, this is not enough. So Eris places a tower every 200 meters. To build those towers, Eris used the memory storage from the castle in the north. He plans to leave the defense on the top part of the wall under the responsibility of Beto and Vargas, as in the other castle. Eris asked Grant to strengthen their defense, and the man did an excellent job. If there is a battle in front of the wall, they can throw super strong bricks at the enemies because mana is hard to maintain. From there, it is easy to cause damage by throwing bricks. Soon Eris is set to acquire weapons to have reliable defense, but for now, bricks will do. The boy takes another potion to restore mana and thinks about what to do next. They also have to make a moat around the wall 10 meters deep. They cannot fill it with water like in the castle in the north, so Eris made it wider. There will be 4 passages with lifting gates on the wall. Since the lumberjacks are very skilled, they will do it quickly. Matic notices that restricting access to the city is good for defense. If needed, they will just raise the gates and protect the kingdom. Meanwhile, there are still many people who can shoot at the enemies. That is when the fortress city Barakania was born. Tryon informs Eris that they are running out of glass, and asks if they can make more. The boy is outraged and says that they probably even used up his glass supplies. The man notes that all the buildings there need glass. Moreover, the merchants bought glass instead of solid bricks. The boy says that he did not want to buy before and asks what has changed. Say that it is because he built that city. Now that they see how glass is used in real buildings, they have reassessed its usefulness. So the houses in his city became a model. Eris says that he should have sold better when he tried earlier. He says that the boy just needs to replenish the supplies again because the glass business will soon go up. Since the merchant thinks so, the boy concludes that he needs to start mass production. In that case, he probably should turn ice production into a spell. Gran meets the exhausted Eris. He says that he is a builder and does not like mass production using magic. The boy claims that durable bricks are convenient. Grant says that bricks and glass are not the same, so making those bricks with magic makes sense because those are the materials they use. And from those bricks, you can make many different things. But with glass, it's different. Besides windows, Eris also uses glass to make cups, plates, and various things. But if he turns it into a spell, he will probably be able to make only one thing. This will hinder creativity and the emergence of new inventions. The boy notes that sand and coal are the basis of glass and are easy to obtain, so it would be sad if they stopped producing new things. Eris asked Grant to try to make something new from glass, and the man asks if he has any idea. Mac asked him to make lenses. He says he wants to see if Grant can meet his expectations, and the man visibly rejoiced. Although it is a random request, Grant enjoys it. Eris finds a moment of rest while drinking tea. It has been a long time since he enjoyed a cup of tea in peace. Hector asks if the inner walls of the castle will appear later, and the boy answers yes. It is supposed to be a symbol of power and the like, but Eris has not yet decided what he will do. Then he hears 2 men arguing outside. Eris recognizes the voices and approaches there. Beto and Vargas are discussing. Beto explains that it is about how to act if the war starts again, and Vargas only knows how to talk about defense. Vargas asks Eris to tell Beto that there is no point in blaming those who are not ready. The boy notices that they are discussing battle plans. Since this is an important discussion, the boy decides that they need to calm down and talk civilized. Eris apologizes to Hector for disturbing him, but the young man does not look worried. Beto drinks tea at the table. Then he says that the battle cannot be won without an attack, but Vargas thinks that since they can build castles, it is better to focus on defense. Eris understands why Beto is so eager to attack. The fight against the Fontana family was the first. A sinister atmosphere hung over the battlefield. People were dying there. Even the main hero was scared. so he attacked without taking the necessary precautions. It seems the same happened to Beto. They defeated a large number of trained enemies, and probably Beto believes it happened because they took the initiative and kept fighting despite everything. Without a doubt, it was a successful move for them. Although Beto is strong, he is still an inexperienced child, and Eris does not consider their victory a success. They did nothing, only challenged the opponent. He is not going to do it again because he knows he has no advantage. On the other hand, Vargas's defensive strategy looks strange. He says they need to focus on training and use castles for defense in battles, but Eris believes that such a way of fighting is very risky. After all, he is just a person without combat experience. Even if they build fortresses and defensive walls, reinforcements will not come to their aid. Carlos Fontana's position is unstable, and he can leave Eris at any time. They do not specialize in any type of firearm. Other knights hate them and can attack at any moment, so they have to survive on their own. Everyone there must be flexible on the battlefield to do their job as best as possible and save people's lives. Everyone there must have the same power and knowledge as the squad captain. Beta and Vargas are confused because Eris did not answer their question. This is unrealistic and possibly a difficult decision, but they need to make a choice. Now he sees what Baruch's army needs. The problem is how they will get it. He wants to do everything for the development of the city's economy, but cannot ignore the development of the army. Hector asks if Aris wants to conquer territories and increase his power, but the boy says no. The main character says he just wants to fight for his land and his position there. Memories of his past life caused Aris trauma. He is afraid to fight and does not want anyone to die. He only wants peace. The boy says he just wants a peaceful life on the farm and to eat delicious food, and Hector is satisfied with this answer. Even so, the main character believes that it is impossible to be a pacifist in that world. Therefore, the boy begins training. He tells everyone to shoot while riding on Valkyries. Preparation began to become a combat force capable of surviving on the battlefield. The first step is to practice riding Valkyries, which became easier thanks to the saddle and harness. People need to use their enhanced physical abilities to stay on the horses. Then they feel strong muscle pain, but it will pass after a short meditation. Those who have learned to ride move on to the next stage. This means the use of magic while horseback riding. Using weapons on horseback is very difficult, so a lot of practice is needed. At first they throw pebbles until they evolve, and then they master throwing ice. The great advantage is that they have many Valkyries. That is why ours chose exactly this fighting style. He trains magical soldiers, who can drive and simultaneously shoot at the target. This allows people to attack the enemy while maintaining distance. They managed to hunt down a giant boar with this strategy. R notes that concentrated ice throws will work even on the most stubborn boar. Training against that beast went very well. The Valkyrie from Arsu leads the entire fleet herself, so even if the soldiers are not very skilled on horses, they will keep formation. Like a school of fish. With a good leader, you are like one whole. Thus he took the first step towards creating the magical cavalry of Baruchi. Grant is glad that he finally succeeded. He did something with glass lenses. The boy asks if he has already finished and if he hasn't slept again. Grant says he knows how to meditate, so he is fine. Meditation is magic that only works when you sleep, so it probably didn't help at all. Perhaps it works gently even on a person who is not sleeping. R tells them to check it at the top of the tower. Binoculars for observing distant objects, using light refraction and several lenses. R only has a rough idea of how it works, so he cannot reproduce it with magic. However, everything is visible from above. Even R sees his mother hanging the laundry. The boy says that grandfather did very well. Then the man says that he never does anything halfway. The main character is glad that Grand went to Baruka again. Someone tells us that it is snowing. This is Carl, he is very cheerful. The boy says that it makes sense and that it will probably be cold that day, so they should drink something warm. R no longer believed that he could rest a little. The year ended, and Carl did not ask him for anything excessive. They were called several times, but Baruka's army was never directly sent into battle. Since there is a large and luxurious road here and a gigantic fortification, much bigger than the enemy base, they can build excellent roads leading directly to the rebel bases. They can also erect forts 10 meters high in strategically important locations. When the enemies saw that the number of troops in the fortress was increasing daily, most of them surrendered. Of course, there were exceptions, but Carlos Fontana was the person responsible for those troops. Thanks to the roads they built, every time they are called, the Fontana structure noticeably grows. R even asked Carlos Fontana to cancel the toll fee, because if they did, people could move more freely and it could bring profit. Carlos Fontana looked at us as if he was annoyed that the guy's requests never ended. Now things in the city of Fontana are much better than before. In winter, both goods flows and summons stagnate. There is a lot of snow in the region, so they spend time as if in hibernation. Our people complain that it is very cold. He complains that he would like to warm up in a hot bath. The younger brother says that it seems this will warm us up, but it is a strange desire. The main character notices that he got so involved in organizing the city that he forgot how pleasant it is to take a good bath, because managing the territory is exhausting. The Valkyrie knocks on the window, calling the boy. Ars comes out and asks what it is. He wants to find out what the Valkyrie wants, to something that looks like a hot spring. The Valkyrie found out about it when they were returning from the war together with Fontana. Now she brought him there because she heard that the boy complains about the cold. His Valkyrie is very smart. The boy dips his feet into the water because if he jumps in completely, he will be very cold when he gets out. He is surprised because if there is a hot spring there, people will probably come. Ars grabs the Valkyrie and runs into the city. He tells Vargas that he would like to use a plot of open land in the neighboring village. The man asks why he is in such a hurry and says he might take advantage of it, but wants to understand what R plans to do. He wants to divert hot water from the river to the village of Lindy. He believes they can attract several guests if they build an inn where one can take a hot bath. Vargas says he will pass this on to the village. Depending on where you arrange it, the water can almost boil. Therefore, he will make sure everything is diverted directly from the source. Thanks to his magic, our search has a foundation, a sturdy pipe for connecting to the water source with a filter at the end. Then he will install another inclined pipe that will bring water to the village and preserve its temperature. Finally, he only needs to finish building the source and the village, and then everything will be fine. At least that was how R imagined it, but he was only able to create a strange pond. It was a mistake to allow farmers without the necessary knowledge to do this. Now only remains to build housing next to that pool. They cannot control the temperature, but the water flows perfectly. For hygiene reasons, Ars connected that pool with a pit, which caused it to fill with dirty water, and the hot water was replaced. Arses's brother asks if it wouldn't be faster to boil a bucket of water if he wanted to wash. He does not understand why so much effort is needed to bring hot water to the city. Ars says that those hot springs usually add vital energy, which hot water itself does not provide. The child asks if meditation no longer solves this problem, and we worry that he brings strong arguments. Now it seems he is just a strange man who makes several people work just because he wants to take a bath. But the main character wants his brother to think he is cool. When he goes to sleep, Ars cannot get rid of this thought and sees no benefit in hot water. He just wanted his younger brother to consider him cool. R creates a huge space. Vargas asks if it is made of glass and strong bricks and what Ars plans to do. The boy says something amazing and that he had planned it for a long time, although in fact he came up with it only yesterday evening. What we built is a kind of greenhouse. He thought about how to make it so that you could plant even in winter. And even earlier they tried to make a smaller one, but it didn't work out. Because glass does not protect from the cold. During the day when the sun was shining it was good, but at night the temperature inside was the same as outside. Now this has changed. Ars plans to maintain warmth in the greenhouse using water. Vargas is impressed, and Ars asks him to tell the villagers that they can try to grow something there. If it works, the problem with food in winter will be solved. So in the end, we built a hot spring and a greenhouse in the village of Linda, both unknown in that world. Ars thanks Valkyrie and says that thanks to her they can now do more things in winter. The boy is very happy that she hatched from the egg he incubated. His Valkyrie is truly impressive. These creatures can even run with adult men on their backs. They have also mastered the magic he can use and have much more mana than ordinary farmers. Now they have even discovered a hot spring. The list of Valkyrie qualities only grows. They are also resistant to temperature fluctuations. Valkyries enter the hot spring without problems and easily run in severe frost. Essentially, these are animals that can live anywhere. R hugs the Valkyrie, and the merchant asks what the child is doing. It's almost time for them to leave. We notice that this is a good opportunity because movement is usually limited in winter. Doing what others do not do is the main rule of business. So they gathered what they managed to grow in the greenhouse. They will transport it to the city of Fontana and sell it. Although those things taste terrible and usually sell poorly, now everything is different. People want to buy as much as possible. In winter, it is rare to eat fresh vegetables. In winter, the world is very harsh. People often starve and sometimes resort to measures to reduce the number of people to feed. Quite often, the eldest son is forced to leave home and he dies on the street. Only the rich do not worry about food in winter. The crowd still wants more goods, even when they have already run out. To calm the population, they say they will return the next day. Men and women doubt whether he will still have that fresh food. Ars tells them not to worry because there is plenty of food in Baruka. The sale of Hotsuka in winter is incredible. Our happy one, because he feels like Santa Claus with his reindeer, and found a way to earn much more on Hotsuka than he could imagine. The city of Fontana, the city of Carlos Fontana, our first project in the role of Lord Baracania. This was done to observe the New Year's customs of that country. All knights must find the lord who appointed them at the beginning of the year. So our knight set off for Fontana Castle. There, in the Lord's Hall, everyone knelt before him. Since Ars was a newcomer, he had to wait, so he saw Carlos Fontana last. Then the party begins with dinner. People gossiped and tried to understand how Raymond lost to Ars, because that guy is still a child. They are outraged that Ars manages to succeed in his country and do not understand why the Lord allowed that child to take this place. Becoming a knight should not depend on family, but in reality most knights come from knightly families. At that party were the bourgeoisie and other privileged people, not ordinary peasants. Ars stood there alone. He is the only one appointed by Carlos Fontana himself, but no one wants to be near him. People are outraged, saying that Ars can very easily break camps in a matter of moments, and probably receive help from other nobles. Although he says absurd things, because of his achievements no one dares to argue with him. The boy begins to get bored and then puts mana into his eye to see people's auras. This makes it much easier to notice the difference. The boy notices that people who seem to have survived battles have mana of better quality, although there is not much of it. They probably improve their mana during the fight. On the other hand, those who previously cooperated with Ryman have neither quality mana nor a large quantity. R says that it is worth asking Beto to add managed training to the menu. Suddenly something catches our attention. He wonders who she is. She does not look like she has ever been in a fight, but her mana is the highest quality he has ever seen. In most knights, mana covers their bodies, but not hers. Our guy addresses her and asks for a minute. The girl turns around and wonders how she can help him. The girl's mana is completely focused in her head, and ours doesn't know whether she does it intentionally or unconsciously. The boy becomes very excited and starts asking her name and where she lives. He says he wants to know everything about her, and the girl asks for some space. Ars tries to explain that he doesn't want to do anything bad. He is just very interested in her. Someone is approaching. Carlos Fontana tells the RMs that he is probably very pleased and feels free to flirt with women right on New Year's. The man jokes that Ars meets women before meeting him. As they say, great people have great desires. Ars explains that he didn't call her because she is a woman, but because he noticed something interesting in her. Carlos Fontana notes that the guy is thinking about Lilina. He asks the girl to show Ars the room and keep him company, but she tries to object. But he says that the girl only reads books every day. This is a good reason to entertain one of his guests. Ars really wants to talk to her, but it turned out that he put her in a very difficult position. When they gather, one of Ars asks how Lilina knows Carlos Fontana. The guy says he asks because he noticed that the man seems worried about her. The girl says they are blood relatives, and our character is shocked that they are brother and sister. He says that the two of them behaved like strangers at the party. Then Lilina explains that Carlos Fontana was born from the Lord's wife. Meanwhile, she was born from one of the maids. This means they are half-siblings. R notices that they have the same hair, but she does not have Carlos's ambitions. In fact, she seems very quiet and reserved. He also thinks that Carlos Fontana looks very attractive. But Lilina's beauty is incredible. R thought and asked why the girl carries trays if she is the Lord's sister, and she replied that noble women are obliged to receive guests. Usually, from childhood, they carry trays to get used to good manners, but she spent her whole life wrapped up in reading books. Carlos Fontana could no longer cope with it and ordered her to entertain the guests on New Year's, but it was inappropriate. She could do nothing. She was only 16 years old. Lilina looks down and asks what our man wants to know. The guy says he looked at many people at the party and noticed that many girls are all focused in their heads. She looks embarrassed. Ars wants to know who taught her this, but the girl says no one. She really has never heard that mana can be different in different parts of the body. R notes that if mana is concentrated in one part of the body, it can be strengthened. Beta makes the whole body stronger when it covers it with mana, and Vargas focuses on the surface of the body to increase protection. Accumulation of mana in the head is supposed to improve memory, judgment, and information processing. Memory preservation works the same way. It seems Lilina does this unconsciously. The main heroine notices that the quality of her mana is better than that of other guests. Maybe it is an innate talent or because she reads a lot, so he asks what books she reads. She says that the books are large and complex, much harder than ordinary stories, so reading and understanding even one book requires some time. If the scrolls are already so voluminous, then the books must be much worse. When he thinks about it, the letters that claim nobility are full of empty words and long sentences. Our little one can read a bit, but if he were asked to read a classic work without a dictionary, he would understand nothing. The boy asks Lilina to explain in simple words what this book is about. She said there are books on history, but he doesn't even know the history of that world. He, for example, wants to know why the royal family, which united all the nobility, declined so much.